Good morning and welcome to this meeting of the Mid-Suffolk Planning Committee. Sorry for the slight delay, but there's problems with both the traffic and the rail service this morning, so we're starting a little bit late. I am Councillor Sarah Mansell and I will be chairing the meeting today. This meeting will be broadcast live to the internet and will be capable of repeated viewing. The whole of the meeting will be recorded except where there are confidential or exempt items. If any member of the public attending the meeting objects to being filmed, please advise us immediately and we will ensure that they're not included in the filming. Members of the public and the press may record, film, photograph or broadcast this meeting when the public and the press are not lawfully excluded. If you are intending to do so, please could you inform a committee clerk. May I please request that your mobile phones are on silent or switched off and that your laptops are switched to silent. If you hear the fire alarm, please leave the building immediately via a fire exit and make your way to the assembly point at Ipswich Town Football Ground. So first we have some introductions. On my left, in the front row, we have the Area Planning Manager, Mark Russell, and we have Planning Officer Alex Bredman, who will be dealing with the second application. Behind him we have our legal advisor Ian Dupre, and we also have some governance officers, Claire Philpott, Alicia Norman and Beth Webb, who will make sure the meeting runs to order. And then we have the members of the committee on my right who will be making the decisions. So can I move to the agenda, please? Item number 1, apologies for absence and substitutions. Do we have any?
None received, Chair.
Thank you. Item number 2, to receive declarations of disclosable pecuniary interests and other registrable or non-registrable interests by members. Are there any interests to declare? Councillor Elkin?
It's not an interest, but I forgot to say last time I mentioned to our legal advisor that my ward is right next to this site, so I'm still voting on it, but I am kind of very nearby.
That is fine. I mean, if Councillor Elkin is has an open mind, I'm sure, and that's it's wise to mention it, but no problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 3, declarations of lobbying. Anyone been lobbied? Councillor Warboy?
Aye.
You've been lobbied on that one.
I'm also an adjacent ward.
Okay, thank you. Item number 4, declarations of personal site visits. Anyone done any personal site visits? No? Right. Item number 5, MPL 2503, confirmation of the minutes of the Planning Committee meeting held on the 4th of June 2025. Are there any points regarding the accuracy of the minutes? Could I have a proposer, please? Councillor Haddingham? And is that seconded by Councillor Warboys? Thank you. The Governance Officer will now conduct the electronic vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members, that vote is now in progress. Councillor Morgan, for? Thank you. Thank you, members. Chair, that's 8 votes for. That's unanimous.
Thank you. The minutes of the meeting have been confirmed and will be signed in due course. Item number 6, to receive notification of petitions in accordance with the Council's petition scheme.
None received, Chair.
Item number 7, we move to the schedule of planning applications, MPL 2504. And we have 2 applications today. We will be doing them in order. So we'll move to item 7A, DC 24-05535, land south of Industrial Estate, Castleton Way, Yaxley. And I will now invite Bron Curtis to introduce the application to the committee via the Teams link. Over to you, Bron.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, members. I'll share the presentation. This item is a deferral you previously considered the application at your meeting on the 23rd of April. Before I get into the presentation and just give you a quick reminder of the details of the proposal and the site, I just draw your attention to the late papers that are in your bundle. Firstly, the comments from Yaxley Parish Council. Apologies to the Yaxley Parish Council. There was some kind of system error that meant that whilst the comments were received on our website, they didn't transfer through to the electronic file, so I didn't see them when I was writing the report, but you have hopefully had a chance to have a look at them. We also have a document from the applicant responding to comments raised by parish councils. We have a Skylarks addendum, which is further survey work relating to Skylarks on and around the site and the impacts of the development. There is also a document which I'm referring to as plume modelling, but it's called computational fluid dynamics, I think, and that is some technical work relating to where a smoke plume would reach in the event of an incident, and also where any explosive impact would be in the event of an incident. And there is also communication from the applicant to Mid Suffolk District Council Communities team relating to an offer of a community benefits package, which is not a material planning consideration, but is something that is under discussion with your communities officers. So I'll just run you through the slides of the presentation to remind you where we are and what the application is. The application site is shown in orange on this plan. It is rather large because it includes the main part of the battery compound in this sort of triangular area down at the south end of the runway on Airfield adjacent to Castleton Way, but it also includes a cable route for connection to the National Grid operated new Yaxley substation and a means of construction access to be able to do that work. So that's the application site in red. This is the application site with some of the main planning constraints. You can see rights of way. On here you can see proximity to some of the properties in Yaxley village. You can see the 140. This slide shows the National Gas high pressure pipeline in the centre of this bluey purple swathe, and the blue purple swathe is the exclusion zone from that infrastructure, with the compressor station at the airfield itself. You can see that the application site lies across the exclusion zone and partly across the location of the underground pipeline. This is the layout of the battery development itself. So you can see the rows of battery containers. You can also see excuse me, internal roadways. You can see various electrical substation transformer equipment, attenuation basins for surface water, and various areas for landscape mitigation. This also shows the cable route works and the access route. And this section here in pink shows the location of the pipeline. I'll have that in a bit more detail in a moment. Here we go. Location of the pipeline in this instance is shown dotted in blue. So you can see that there's no built works over the pipeline. The nearest are these elements here in the transformer and substation pieces of equipment, and the batteries are in these rows here. So the nearest piece of equipment there is approximately 86 metres from the pipeline. There is some drainage and landscaping works, which is a bit nearer here, as you can see, but that is at the edge of the 35-metre exclusion zone from the above ground infrastructure, which is around here. The nearest battery to the Castleton Way Road, just as a point of interest, is 21 metres. So this is just some elevation drawings showing the various pieces of equipment. So the battery containers look very similar to shipping containers. A substation building, transformer equipment. Some CCTV and lighting. Firewater tank, firewater to be tankered into the site and then kept on site because we're in the Hartismere moratorium zone here. and also the proposed suds basins to be fitted with an automatic stop valve, so that in the event of an incident, any water used for firefighting would be retained on site and then tested and treated as necessary or removed before being allowed to drain out of the attenuation basin. Palisade fencing, but we did speak last time about the developer being willing to change that to mesh fencing instead, which is slightly less prominent. It's just an example of a battery site, an example of a CCTV column with lighting, and then the photographs of the site itself. This is taken on the southern boundary of the site at Castleton Way, close to the access, looking over the site. You can also see turbines in the distance on the left hand side there. You can see the Potash Lane access from Castleton Way just on the left here. And then moving further up Potash Lane towards the site, you can looking right across the site to the east from Potash Lane here. And then views from Castleton Way at the eastern end of the site, looking northward. And looking northward again, you can see the wind turbines on Airfield, and you can see various of the industrial and commercial buildings, Brunswick, etc. in the background. More views from Castleton Way at the approximate location of the secondary access. And this is looking towards the site from Rapsy Tapsy Lane and the junction with Castleton Way. And then I've included this slide, which is new from last time. One of the instructions from the last committee was to seek information on other operational sites that are close to gas pipelines. So these are the three that the applicant has provided details of. So one in Scotland, which is within 50 metres of a gas pipeline. One in Wales, which is also within 50 metres of a gas pipeline. And one in England, which is co-located with some gas-fired engines. So they're part of the same development. So there is power generation and storage as part of that development. They're all operational. I'll just give you some aerial views of a couple of them. This is the Newport one. So you can see it's in a fairly built up area with some other electrical and industrial equipment. There's also a sports village just out of shot to the north here. And this is Creekbeck. This is the England one at Hull, where you've got the co-located generation and storage, again close to a substation and some other development. That's the end of the presentation. So just to run you through now, as a reminder of the instruction, we had a minded to reason for refusal, which was to be risk assessed. But also there was some information that members asked for last time. So the information on the other sites that are operational close to gas pipelines, which I'll just run over there, and also updated information on the emergency response plan. We have got an updated outline emergency response plan, so the recommendation is to still secure a final version of that and annual review and update as appropriate by condition. And you'll see in the papers that we've specifically asked, so there was a request to ask advice from technical consultees specifically relating to the minded to reason for refusal about the risk to public safety and amenity given the proximity to the gas pipeline, but also the proximity to residential properties and to other critical national infrastructures such as the Progress Power gas-fired power station and the high school. You will note from the papers that we have had no different comments from any of the technical consultees. So that leads me on to the risk assessment for that reason, and you'll see that I have been through that in the various items that we need to consider when risk assessing a reason for refusal, and that there is a degree of risk with that. So overall, the officer recommendation remains the same as it was previously. So on your page 31, so to note the risk assessment and the degree of risk there, but to grant permission conditional permission with the conditions as recommended. I can confirm that there was a discussion last time about the Skylarks mitigation, and it's in the recommendation is 10 years, but there was discussion at the time about whether it could be 40 years, and the applicant has agreed to 40 years. The Skylarks addendum that's come in has suggested that there may not be need for mitigation. That's been reviewed by your ecologist, and they continue to recommend condition for mitigation. So there is no change to the principle of the recommendation in that respect, but just a change from 10 years to 40 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from members? Councillor Penny.
Yes, apologies, I wasn't present at Planning Committee when this case was first heard. However, I have read the minutes. Looking at the recommendations, number 19 is that the Battery Safety Management Plan and Emergency Response Plan is to be agreed. As safety and risk are a key element of concerns about this development, would it not be sensible to include it with the application and to show that discussions with National Gas and Progress Power are taking place, have taken place? I know from background reading on the subject that there have been 63 fires across the world.
You've asked your question. That I think the next bit is a debate.
Okay.
Thank you.
So yeah, would it not be sensible to include it with this type of plan in all cases?
Thank you, Councillor. So we have had two versions now of the outline emergency response plan and battery safety management plan, which are in the file documents and are referred to in the papers. The reason why there is no final version is quite common for battery developments, because the technology is so fast moving that the developer seeks to procure and install the safest version of the technology for the development when they come to actually get on site and construct. There has been existing and ongoing dialogue with National Gas, Progress Power, also National Grid, and the high school. And you'll see in the additional information that the applicant has provided that they're committed to, and Suffolk Fire and Rescue Service, that they are committed to continue that dialogue and to develop the final version of the emergency response plan in consultation with those parties. The consultee set out by the National Planning Policy Guidance for these matters is the local fire and rescue service. They've been consulted at all stages along the way of the application, and they have their advice is that they have no objection and they are welcoming the opportunity to work with the applicant to secure the final version of the emergency response plan and battery safety management plan, hence the condition to make sure that we get that secured. But also, as an additional measure, we are asking for that to be reviewed annually and for reasonable changes to respond to any changes in battery safety for operation or design or legislation, guidance, etc., to be incorporated into the operation. Thank you.
Can I just add to that, because I was going to ask about Suffolk Fire and Rescue Service as to whether they were being consulted as part of the emergency response plan. So the condition as it is written now just says it has to be agreed and reviewed and updated, but it doesn't mention anything about in consultation with Suffolk Fire and Rescue and those other parties that you've mentioned. Can that be added to the condition to make sure that when it is reviewed, you're also going to consult with, get them involved in the review?
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. We can make the condition wording more explicit to mention those parties.
Chair, could you...
Thank you. Did you want to come back, Councillor Penny?
Sorry, just for the record, when we go to the motion, can you repeat the bodies that you just quoted?
What I've just said,
Yeah.
that it's condition 19, and it says that battery safety management plan and emergency response plan to be agreed,
Yeah.
and to be reviewed and updated as appropriate annually. I think it should be in consultation with Suffolk Fire and Rescue, and I can't remember all of those other things that Bron mentioned,
that's what I was
the
asking.
Progress Power, National Grid.
Okay, we'll hear what you're saying and elaborate on that when the time comes.
Thank you. Thank you. Is that okay, Councillor Penny? Did you want to come back?
You know, that's great. The school was the other party.
Councillor Warboys.
It's on the same theme, the fire and rescue. This is still in a draft form, I understand, and it hasn't, a final version hasn't been agreed. Is it possible to condition that there is a final version agreed before any lithium batteries are actually installed?
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, that's the intention of condition 19. If you'd like me to share with you the full, what I've given you in your recommendation is just a summary of the topic to be controlled rather than the full wording. But if you would like the full wording, I can share that with you if you'd like to get into the detail of that later.
I think that is one of the main things that we're concerned about is the emergency response. So I think it might be helpful to know what we're actually is going to be agreed. If that's all right, Councillor Warboys, you asked the question.
Yes, that would be good.
Thank you. Councillor Haddingham.
Thank you. Bron, the 3 sites that were within 50 metres of the other gas pipelines, have you got the exact details? I mean, are they 50 metres? Because I mean, this one is literally right in the middle of the constraints map, right, literally through the site. I mean, if the others are 50 metres away, it's not quite the same, I feel. Have you got the details of them?
The information we've been given is that the Scottish and Welsh ones are within 50 metres and the one that's in England is within 30 metres. And I can show you the overhead view again, if that would be helpful.
Yes, please.
This is Creekbeck. This is the English one, which is within 30 metres. And then I can make the slide move. Here we go. This is the one at Newport, which is within 50 metres.
We can't actually see where the pipeline is in relation to the batteries. Is that what you were asking, Councillor Haddingham? On that plan, do you know where the, can you point out where the batteries are and where the gas pipeline is?
I've not been able to access the maps. Unfortunately, different gas operators have their maps in different formats, and sometimes you have to call to get them. But I'm hopeful that the applicant will be able to answer that for you.
Okay. Councillor Elkin. Sorry, can I just... Oh, did you want to come back, Councillor Haddingham?
Well, I just want to say, but they're all within, they're not actually on top of, this one is not within 50, it is within like 0 metres really, isn't it? And so none of them have the gas light on the site. You're just saying they're within, so this is slightly different.
So the battery element of this development is 86 metres away from the pipeline. But the red line crosses the pipeline because it includes a cable route, which is on the other side of to the substation, which is on the other side of the road. So in order to connect the batteries to the substation, there's a need to cross the pipeline and the road and various other bits and pieces. So that's why the site crosses it and sits on top of it. But the actual built development, the battery and other equipment, 86 metres, there's some drainage and landscape works at 35 metres distant.
Is that...
Sorry, Bron, I'm being a bit thick here, but you're saying that the battery units are 86 metres from the thing? Because, I mean, it doesn't look like that on the map, but maybe I'm just, not getting it. But anyway, thank you. So that battery unit is 86 metres from the pipeline?
That's the information the applicant has provided in their plans. That's the measurements that they show.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Elkin.
Thank you. Bron, I've got a few questions, but I'll just start with one. It was also about the emergency response plan. I didn't mention Town Council, I don't think, as being involved. But my specific question was, it says that the applicant has suggested having a 100-metre exclusion zone around, if there was to be a fire or an incident, have a 100-metre exclusion zone. So I just wondered, as it's a remotely operated site, who is going to implement that? Maybe it's a question for the applicant.
Thank you. I Town Council were consulted as part of the application, and their response is, I believe it starts on page 32 in the previous report. They were reconsulted following the previous committee meeting, and they didn't provide a response. That doesn't mean that they now don't have any comments. We still accept their comments as they were previously. They just didn't respond to that reconsultation to say that they had any change of view. The 100-metre exclusion zone, excuse me. So the way in which battery incidents work, excuse me again, is that they are remotely monitored. So there is equipment within the battery units themselves to detect any changes, abnormal changes like heat or ignition, so that the units then have that inbuilt detection, and they have some inbuilt suppression, but that would also alert the remote monitoring service, and that would also alert, the Suffolk Fire and Rescue Service. But the fire safety representative from the applicant is on the call and probably able to answer in much more technical and specific detail.
Thank you. Did you want to come back, Councillor Elkin? And you had some more questions.
I'll save those, but yes, if I could just come back on that one. I think what I'm getting at is that I's quite a long way from things, and it will take police or fire, if the traffic's bad on the A roads, which it often is, quite a while to get there. So my question was, if there's a fire burning away and the field have decided to stand up their emergency plan and want this exclusion zone in place, the road is 20 metres away, it's a very busy road, it feeds to the school. Who sets that up? And so I was asking, I wasn't asking about Town Council's comment, I was asking about the fact that they aren't being included in the emergency planning, because it may be that while the police and fire services and everybody else is getting there, there may be a very unsafe situation with a fire and lots of thick smoke blowing straight across the road and nobody doing anything about it.
Question.
Sorry, my question was, can Town Council be included in the emergency planning?
I don't see any reason why they can't be included, but I would just caution as to what their professional status would be in providing advice on any submitted document if there was a conflict between their opinion and Suffolk Fire and Rescue. So just to manage members' expectations, that whilst we can certainly include them and have regard to their comments, we would be looking at Suffolk Fire and Rescue are they're not actually a statutory consultee, but they are the consultee cited in national policy.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I'm not expecting them to be managing the situation. It's for them to be being advised. Okay.
Any further questions for the officer? Thank you very much. Oh, yep.
With the plume modelling, I know I asked you this beforehand, but I'm not very technical, Bron, sorry. I did read through the report, and from what my understanding was that they did the modelling based on one battery pack unit and then one sort of rack of battery packs, but not a whole container, which is 6 racks worth, I think. So I just wondered if that was correct.
It is very technical. The applicant is in the room with you, and it's probably better that they go through the details so that I don't misinterpret my reading, because it's come to me the same time it's come to you, and it's something that I've not read before. So I think if you don't mind, if that question could go to the applicant. Thank you.
Yes.
And you've got another question? Or is that one also that's likely to go to the applicant?
I think probably, yeah.
Okay, so if you want to save those questions for the applicant, and if Bron needs to come back in, then we can bring her in. Are there any further questions for Bron? Thank you. So we now need to move on to the public speakers. And first we have Yaxley Parish Council, Mr. Ian Luff, who I believe is joining us on Teams. Hopefully you can hear us and we can hear you. And you'll have your 3 minutes once you begin. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good morning, members. Good morning, everybody else. I'd like to make it clear that Yaxley does not object to every battery facility nearby. We're not against battery facilities per se. We are against the reckless location of this battery facility. We understand the attraction of sites on the airfield. We wouldn't necessarily be against another site on the airfield, but this site is an unnecessary risk next to a gas pipeline that runs very clearly through the site and adjacent to the substation, and substations burn as well. This was designated a high-risk area by the National Gas Transmission Authority on the 30th of December 2024. That means exactly that high risk is by definition more of a risk than a zone that is not a high-risk area. This is manifestly an unnecessary risk. The risk is there, it's concrete and undeniable. These are flammable units, whatever the precautions, and they are in a high-risk zone for no good reason. There are other sites nearby. There are real and concrete dangers, as I say. The fire issues are definitely real. The fire advice is to isolate these units and let them burn. Really? Near a gas pipeline? The Deputy Chief Fire Officer of Suffolk, Henry Griffin, said that there are complications with vapour clouds when batteries actually burn. Fires can last a long time. That time will be critical. Suffolk Fire Service is a largely part-time service. There are only 35% of the members are actually employed full-time. The response times will be slow. In fact, Suffolk Fire Service's response times are some of the slowest in the country. Now, are we really willing to actually risk a remote indication of a fire followed by a slow response by largely part-time firefighters who, by their own admission, are not fully trained yet on this technology? It is an unnecessary risk. The local danger to people, we're not just near the village of Yaxley, we're near Thraniston, Broome, High, a high school, 2 primary schools, a large workforce at Cranswick, and all of those people are being put at risk from the fumes, from possible explosion. I mean, there is no getting away from that. You will hear the applicant try and minimise the risk, but the risk is real. The risk could happen. Can we really sit here and let that happen? It's a high-pressure gas pipeline. It's not just any gas pipeline. It's always been so strictly protected. In the past, the wind turbines were forced to be away from the pipeline, so if any one of them
Are you
fell,
almost at the end?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. If you'd just like to wrap up now.
Okay, well, the explosion risk is real. There's a 50 million indemnity on this. It's an unnecessary risk. Are we in a position to judge the real risk with such new technology? Fire authorities approved Grenfell Tower, King's Cross Station, the Dagenham Tower.
Thank you.
Buncefield Oil Depot. Please let me finish. I'm representing people.
Yeah, but you're repeating what you said before. Have you got anything just to wrap up? One sentence.
Okay, it's an unnecessary risk for the people of Yaxley. Do not take it. It's your duty as councillors to actually turn this down. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Mr. Luff from the members? Thank you. Thank you very much. So we now have Philip Freeman from Thraniston Parish Council, who's also joining us on Teams. Hope you can hear me and we can hear you. Thank you.
Good morning. I spoke at the last meeting where this was discussed, and one of the critical things I think associated with this is this lack of a strategic policy for the development of solar farms and battery storage in the A140 corridor. That you should be, as a council, Mid-Suffolk District Council, working with Suffolk County Council, Norfolk County Council, South Norfolk Council to develop a strategy rather than this piecemeal haphazard development which is taking place all over this area and ruining an area of natural beauty. This plan is the wrong development in the wrong place at the wrong time. Thrandeston Parish Council, as Yaxley, is not opposed to the battery storage principle, but only in this particular case. Field Yaxley has bought the wrong piece of ground in the wrong place, and as a result is planning a totally inappropriate development which threatens the safety and well-being of local people. It is hard to believe that the officers of the planning department are recommending this application should be approved. It is obvious to anyone, as Dr. Luff says, it is dangerous. If the planning committee approves the application, and there is likely to be a fire, and it spreads to the gas pipeline, the members of the committee will be held to account. At the last meeting of the planning committee, which discussed this application, there was a proposal to refuse it until I believe it was a solicitor and clerk to the committee that advised it would cost a lot of money if there was an appeal. Thrandeston Parish Council is amazed that Mid Suffolk District Council believes that money is more important than the safety and well-being of local people, especially 1,000 students at Hartersmere School. I was amazed again to hear that a 100-metre exclusion zone will be formed if there is an emergency. That will include the road, Castleton Way, as has already been mentioned by Dr. Luff. And again, the question he asked, are those examples that were given high pressure gas pipelines? We don't know. Is there a school nearby? The other issue, which is a major concern locally to landowners and farmers, is the continuing development of impermeable surfaces on Eye Airfield. There are no strategic plans for Eye Airfield, for solar farms, for battery storage. This is a shocking, detrimental situation which needs to be resolved. There is flooding in the River Dove Valley, which is occurring because of the increase in impermeable surfaces. And I gave in the Thrandeston details examples of where a gas pipeline of this type exploded in 2004, and that killed 24 people and injured 132.
Are you almost finished?
Okay. It is not a suitable site, and it is not a suitable project. It should be refused if you want to keep your names free from a future accusation of incompetence. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we need to give the applicants some extra time to speak because both of the parish councils.
Yeah, thank you. Are there any questions of the representative from Thrandeston? Thank you very much.
Hi, are you still there?
I think they can listen anyway, so if you say your question, yeah, he's back. I'll say your question.
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi. I'd just like to say I fully agree with your comment about the lack of a strategic approach. But do you not accept that it is due to both this government and the previous government that there is none? So we cannot do anything in that area.
Is that a relevant question about this application?
No.
It is due to.
We're not.
Answer it. That will save time. No, I don't accept that.
No, I don't
I'm sorry.
Sorry, let me finish.
No, I think we are not here to change the policy. We are here to apply the policy. We can't do anything in our committee today to change either Mid Suffolk's own strategic policies or the government's strategic policies. But I'm just looking to my officers to see if they can confirm that we can't do anything about that now.
It needs to be addressed. That is shocking.
That may be so, and we take that on board, but we can't address the lack of policy today. We have to apply the policies that we've already got.
If you keep muting me, I will keep unmuting.
In which case you may get thrown out of the Teams meeting.
Fair enough, if that's what it takes.
Right. We are here to try and apply the policies. I hope I'm using the right words. We are not here we can't change the policy, and we take on board your message that policies may need to be changed, but we can't do that today. Councillor Penny.
My intention was to follow up with a question along the lines of exactly what you have just said, Chair.
So what was the question?
The government-related one and the lack of strategy, and I was going to say, follow up with a question about whether the representative from Thrandurston accepts exactly what you were just saying.
I don't know that that's relevant.
Do you wish me to answer or not?
No.
No, okay.
I've just made. I think your my governance colleague is. Everyone in this room, you're all experienced enough councillors now to know. Sorry, am I switched on? Yes. That we have to. The legal duty of this committee is to determine the application in accordance with the development plan and other material considerations, which includes government policy. You all know that, and I mean, and as you've said, Madam Chair, members of this committee may have opinions about what government policy should or shouldn't be compared to what it is now, but there it is.
Thank you. Are we ready to move on? We don't have an objector, we don't have a supporter. We have the agent, Ian York, and Rebecca Sherwood, who are they're the ones in the room now, and we have Andy Ray, who's available on Teams. So over to Ian York and Rebecca Sherwood. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to speak again today on behalf of the applicant, Field Jackson Limited. To reiterate, Field is a leading developer, owner and operator of grid-scale batteries across the UK and Europe. I'm joined today again by Beck Sherwood, Field's Head of Development, and online by Andy Ray, Field's Quality, Health, Safety and Environment Lead. The principle of development, including its alignment with national and local energy policy, was discussed in detail at the previous committee. Members accepted that the proposals would support the UK's transition to low-carbon energy. The alternative site assessment demonstrates that this is a suitable site for a BESS within 2 kilometres of the Axley substation, and this has been accepted by your officers. Airfield is synonymous with co-located industry and energy infrastructure. Today, the focus rightly shifts to the matter of the previous committee deferral, which is public health and safety. We understand and respect the committee's concerns. In response, the applicant has provided further detailed information, including about Field's quality and safety accreditations and working practices, which are industry-leading, and its involvement in several industry working groups that promote UK safety regulations and standards for the BESS industry. We have also submitted an outline version of the emergency response plan to be further developed in consultation with Suffolk Fire and Rescue, Progress Power, National Gas, the Council's Environmental Health Officer, as well as sensitive receptors in the area, including Hartley-Smith School. This document will ensure that first responders understand the practices to be followed that will enable a quick and effective response in the unlikely event of an incident. Computational fluid dynamic modelling has been undertaken by the applicant, confirming that pollutants from an incident would be limited to the area immediately around the batteries up to a distance of 70 metres, and therefore the precautionary 100-metre exclusion zone around the site identified in the emergency response plan is adequate. And all sensitive receptors in the area will be unaffected, the nearest residences being over 480 metres away. This application is not unique in terms of locating a BESS near a gas pipeline, and we have provided examples of other projects where these two types of infrastructure are located close to each other, including a 300 megawatt operational BESS in Scotland. We note the Parish Council's comments about an incident involving a gas pipeline in Belgium, which was unrelated to a BESS. This was caused by poor construction practices. Field has worked with National Gas and Progress Power to agree detailed designs and pre-construction assessments that will ensure stringent construction safety controls are in place. Neither of these parties have objected. Suffolk Fire and Rescue have also been consulted and not raised any concerns. Indeed, after a full re-consultation, there remain no objections from statutory consultees. We also understand that Suffolk County Council Head of Schools Infrastructure has responded, advising that in their view, the project will not impact Hartley-Smith School. Recognising that communities should feel tangible benefits for hosting renewable energy infrastructure, Field has committed to a community benefit fund of up to £8 million over the project's lifetime. Overall, this proposal will meet national safety guidelines, aligns with strategic energy priorities, and takes all reasonable measures to ensure the protection of neighbouring infrastructure and public safety. I respectfully urge members to support this vital piece of energy infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we're on to questions for the agent, and I'm going to go to Councillor Elkin because she had some questions earlier that I think should be related to the agent.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you. I had a few, but if I start with the emergency response, you mentioned the 100-metre exclusion zone, but I think you probably heard me say earlier to Bron that obviously the road's 20 metres away, I think, from the nearest battery unit. So in the event that there was an incident, and it's given that it's a remote site, I was just wondering who would implement that exclusion zone while waiting for the emergency response.
I'll defer to my colleague.
And I'll actually further defer to Andy Ray, our Health and Safety Manager, who's online.
Good morning, everyone. So with in response to your question, basically the 100-metre exclusion zone is to be implemented in line with the fire service. Now, I take into account what you said earlier on about slow responses and the likes, but ultimately, because it is a remote site, from a field perspective, we rely on the likes of the emergency services for these things, and they will control the highways, they'll control the surrounding areas in terms of implementing an emergency response restriction. This will be done at as early as possible. Now, of course, incidents, there isn't a plan for when an incident happens, so we'll react to that as quickly as we can. We will have a local team that will respond to the incident quickly and help us implement this 100-metre exclusion zone, which will mean closing a section of the road, but I think as we've seen in the planning of this closure, there is other means of getting to and from the local areas.
Thank you. Have you got another question?
Yes, thank you. That was why I was asking about the town council and the school, not with the expectation that they would have to be implementing any of the emergency response, because clearly that's not in their skill set, but they are the people who...
What is your question?
Sorry. Residents will go to the town council for help if there's a fire. Is there a way to support and advise the town council and the school so that they know how to respond if there's an incident?
Yes, ultimately we can include the town council in the consultation of the emergency response planning and our plan and alignment with the fire service. And we can talk them through the expected response and what they can then offer us to support that in the event of an incident occurring.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have another question, or can I move on?
I have, but I'll let other people have
Shall
a
we go for Councillor Haddingham?
Hi guys, forgive me if I asked this last time, but can you just tell me how many best sites there are at the moment in the UK, how long have they been going, and how many incidences of fires have there been? Thank you.
Yeah, hi, I'm Beck Sherwood, the Head of Development at Fields. Thanks for your question. Batteries generally are not unsafe facilities. I think it's a new emerging industry, right? And technology is rapidly advancing, as are safety standards. So I have stats from April 2025, so probably pretty recent, and there was 269 battery sites in operation at that time. Only one operational fire, that's the Carnegie Road, which I think you've probably heard about. And there's been 2 incidents this year, but both in construction. And then not only is that the number of sites that are in operation, obviously you also then need to think about operating hours, which is then a lot longer than that. And so therefore that probability comes down even further when you look at it like that. Just to give some quick details on the fires that have been to date. So the Carnegie Road fire, I think importantly, that was on a different battery technology. So that was on nickel, manganese, cobalt technology, which is now generally not used by the industry, and it's now LFP, and that's what will be used at this site. So I think that's a big difference there. And then the 2 construction fires that have happened this year, actually they are seen as sort of almost good news for the industry, because exactly what was supposed to happen happened. So batteries now, battery manufacturers do full-scale safety testing. So they force fires on their modelled scenarios to see if it happens. And the safety measures are set up so that the fire will not propagate from cell to cell. And so, A, that's what happened. So in terms of the battery technology, that responded in the way that they expected. And then the second is the guidance, so like the NFCC guidance that's in place for what happens in that. So that there are emergency response plans planned in consultation with the fire service so they know how to respond. So both of these sites will reopen within the day, within 24 hours of the thing. And then the other is in relation to the separation distances in the guidance. So for example, the 6 metres, and so that further then stopped any further spread of fire at those sites.
Thank you. Did you want to come back?
It's not really, it's the question that I was asking. Sorry. This is the question that I asked Bron beforehand. On the plan, it looks like it's, like I say off the top of my head, I'd say about sort of 15 metres away from the gas pipeline, but supposedly it's 86 or whatever. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm also happy to answer that. So yes, that's correct, I think. So the first sort of purple zone that Bron showed, which covers the whole site, that's the HSE consultation zone. And I think also important to clarify that the HSE Health and Safety Executive, that is, have confirmed that they have no objection with the application. And so then in relation to distances, Bron was quite right. So we're 86 metres from the gas infrastructure to the nearest infrastructure, that's the transformers, and then actually to a battery, it's over 100 metres. And then also to put that into context of the other examples that you were given. So one that Bron noted but didn't have images for, but I think is particularly relevant, is a site called Black Hillock in Scotland. That's a 300 megawatt site, so larger than this site. The pipeline that it's within 50 metres of, so again closer than this site, is a high pressure gas pipeline, so directly comparable. That's by another leading developer, Zenobē, who you may well have heard of. And I also think important to note that Zenobē have recently launched electric batteries for an electric bus fleet. So, in terms of their safety standards, working with the public, etc., Zenobē are also leading. And then the second example that I wanted to go back to was the Newport example that Bron showed, which again is within 50 metres. And the reason why I think that one's particularly relevant is that that is in an urban environment, so that it's got places of work and residential receptors within close proximity to that. Again, that's an operational site, it's one of field sites, and we have worked closely with the local fire service there, who visited pre-construction, during construction, and have said that the way that we have worked with the fire service there is the gold standard in terms of what they want to see with battery developers.
Thank you. Thank you for the addition of the bit about the Newport, because I was going to ask if the one in Scotland had any, homes or businesses, but I presume it isn't. It's not close to residences or places of work, the one in Scotland?
That's right, it's not. But on that, you always still assess the risk, right? You always still have to look at the risk to life, because obviously there may be operational people present and the emergency services still have to respond. So actually that same risk still has to be acceptable, irrespective of the location.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Councillor Warboys, and then I'm going to come back to Councillor Elkin, and then, did I see your hand, Councillor Penny? Oh, and Councillor Morgan. So, everybody, in fact. Let's go for Councillor Warboys.
Just slightly different topic. In the supplementary papers, you're responsible for the lifetime of the site. The site's a temporary site for 40 years. But you're responsible for the decommissioning of the site at the end of 40 years. So what continues? 40 years is a long time in the lifetime of an emerging industry. So what contingency is there to ensure that that decommissioning will take place and hopefully the batteries will be recycled safely and the rest?
It's fairly standard to have a decommissioning plan conditioned as part of a permission, so that will be baked into the final permission if granted, and that would need to be worked through and therefore agreed with the council prior to it being implemented. But that will be obviously towards the end of the period of decommissioning.
Can I just check with the... can I just check with the officer that we do have a decommissioning plan as one of the in the conditions? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, in your recommendation starting page 31, that's included. It's described as reinstatement in this case, but that includes the removal of all elements and the reinstatement to the pre-existing condition, notwithstanding any improvements that we would like to see retained, such as biodiversity and landscape enhancements. Thank you.
As long as it's included in the conditions, I'm not convinced. I'm not quite sure which condition we're looking at, but as long as it is conditioned. Right. I think I did. Did you want to come back, Councillor Warboys?
Of site to be agreed. So,
right. Okay.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Councillor Elkin.
Thank you, Chair. It was I'll come back to my question about the plume modelling. It says that it was done for a sort of a unit and a rack. Was it done for a whole container? And if so, did that change the areas that would be impacted by the various toxic substances?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer to that again. So as part of the plume modelling, so we worked with the battery supplier closely because obviously we need information from them. And so we've done 2 scenarios. The worst one is considered a worst case, and because of what I said earlier about the fire wouldn't propagate, and so actually we've done it wouldn't propagate. We've done module to module, but even that's not expected, and then it wouldn't propagate rack to rack, and so therefore it wouldn't go on to the next string. So no, it hasn't been modelled, but that's because all of the testing, the full-scale testing that I talked about earlier, has shown that that scenario would not happen.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Do you want to come back, Councillor Elkin?
Again, for the non-technical, my understanding was that I know the safety procedures are improving all the time, but I believe previous best fires have propagated and they have consumed not just one unit but several units. I appreciate that might be old technology. Could you explain why that's now not a concern when it has happened in the past?
Yeah, I might defer to Andy Ray online again for that one.
Hi. So I guess, like you mentioned, technology is ever developing. The technology we've chosen to run the study on is a technology that we're using on other projects at the moment currently. The testing is changing as well. The methodology for testing is changing as well. Bex mentioned earlier about long duration testing where they force a unit into fire and burn it for 12 hours to check the gas that comes out of it, to check the behaviour of the fire. Under some of the testing that's been done so far, the results have shown that propagation rack to rack hasn't occurred. So I get your point with the previous fires, previous incidents, but ultimately we can go off the test data that we have available to us.
Thank you. I think we were next on Councillor Penny, then it was Councillor Morgan, and then Councillor Hardingham.
Okay. Is the remote access reliant on a good mobile phone signal or internet connection?
I'll again pass to Andy, please.
Could you just clarify what you mean by remote access, sorry?
The site is to be operated remotely, so I'm just wondering whether that is dependent on having a good mobile signal, or is it through the internet?
It'll be a fixed wire internet connection.
Okay.
It'll be a fibre connection to the site where it's then built in as we go through.
Thank you. Councillor Morgan.
Yes, hello. I want to address more the construction, because it has been proven that high-pressure gas pipelines, when regular heavy-duty traffic pass over them, it depresses the soil, therefore the pipeline depth decreases due to that, and also the pipelines are originally constructed to protect against internal pressure, not this added external. So I was wondering if there was any way, you may have already done it, but I was wondering if you hadn't, if there would be some kind of way of making sure that heavy goods vehicles know exactly where the pipeline is and that they do not pass over, therefore preventing. So I'm actually wanting reassurance. Thank you.
Yeah, you're quite right. There does need to be protective measures above pipelines. And so we've had a lot of engagement with National Gas and Progress Power, and they have standard design requirements in terms of what they require. So, for example, that there does need to be a concrete slab built above the pipeline. So and we've agreed those requirements with them. They're included, the full list of them is included in the conditions. And they have to, and before any works, they have to sign off the specification of what you're proposing. And for certain works like that, a representative from them has to be present when the works take place.
Does this mean that once you've laid the concrete and done the foundations before the battery packs arrived, do they come and then inspect to make sure there haven't been any fissures and damage to the pipelines and the soil surrounding?
Andy, can you answer that, please?
Yes. So we, like Bex has said, we will work with National Gas and Progress Power. There will be a specified minimum strength that this concrete needs to be. It will be likely to be reinforced concrete that is built around the pipeline, or certainly 3 sides, to prevent any pressure on the pipeline, any added pressure on the pipeline. This will be done in conjunction with National Gas and Progress Power. And like Bex mentioned, there will be someone there watching us do the work, or watching the contractor do the work. We've just recently done this for another project that we're doing up in Scotland, where Scottish Gas had somebody sat on site watching us do the two slabs that we had to do over 2 separate high-pressure gas mains.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Hardingham.
Thank you. My first question now becomes a follow-up to Councillor Morgan's, really. But am I right in thinking that to go back to the concerns of the parish councils, they seem to revolve to a large extent around the risk of explosion in the gas pipeline. As I understand it, am I right in thinking that the risk to the pipeline is purely from mechanical damage, and clearly, in view of the distance of the battery units from the gas main, not due to heat propagation?
Yeah, I'm happy that is right, and I'm also happy to give a bit more information on why that is. There are various regulations. So high pressure gas pipelines, safety is paramount. So there are regulations that govern them. It's I have them written down here: Dangerous Substance and Explosive Atmospheres Regulation and the Explosive Atmospheres Directive. And under those directives, they set zones away from the pipeline, which are ATEX, atmosphere explosive French, ATEX zones. So ATEX zone 0 is where there's a constant gas present, so that's like within the pipeline, so not relevant here, right, because this is underground. Then you have ATEX zone 1, and that's where there's a mixture of gas and air such that if an ignition source is brought in, it could cause an explosion. And that is a very limited diameter. It's a lot smaller than people think, and it's sort of like 1 to 2 meters, and we do have the exact details from National gas of theirs. And then there's ATEX Zone 2, which is low risk, and that's where there is a mixture of gas and air, but it's so dilute that ignition isn't possible. And so for this pipeline, the ATEX Zone 2 extends out to 35 metres. And so just to go back to the earlier point, we're 86 metres at our nearest point, so we're well beyond that explosive limit area. And then that's in terms of infrastructure. And then the final part to bring into that is in the fluid dynamics modelling that we just did, we did two parts. One in terms of the plume modelling for pollutants, and one in terms of the explosion risk. And what that shows is, so they force an overpressure in the container, and then as we hoped, so what we hoped would happen happens, and that's that there is an explosive atmosphere created from the overpressure, and that's directed upwards because there's deflagration panels on the top. They burst open and release the pressure upwards, and that pressure, firstly, is only around for a very limited amount of time, so it's within sort of 150 milliseconds has that pressure dissipated, but also the distance over which it travels, it's confined to 10 to 15 metres of the limit. So again, if you're looking at that in context, so if we've got a battery 100 metres away that can create explosive pressure 10 to 15 metres compared to the pipeline, which is over 100 metres away. So there's no way that we would bring a source of ignition into that high-risk zone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have got another question.
Okay.
Yep. It's maybe just a detail, really, but the plume exposure modelling, you've modelled the exposure levels at 0 metres and at 6 metres, and presumably you're expecting a linear spread of the exposure, but just as a matter of detail, why not at 1.5 or 1.8 metres, which is where you would expect people to be at risk? I mean, I fully understand that actually your maximum distance is 70 metres and you've got a 100-metre exclusion zone, but why is the modelling at 0 and at 6?
Yeah, I can start to answer that, and then if there's anything else that Andy wants to add, then it can come in. So it follows on from my point previously that the atmosphere travels upwards, right? So that the same happens in terms of the pollutants. So actually the highest levels are at sort of like 30 metres away. And so the reason that we chose 6 metres was just to be sort of more representative of a second-storey building or something like that. There's no point in reporting that 30 metres. And so what they showed is that at ground level, that there wasn't anything, right? And so that same would have been at 1.8, and so we've gone higher. And so because that pollutant cloud travels upwards, like, yes, it might travel further at 30 metres, but actually it's dispersing. It doesn't travel back down, and then it's dispersing before it gets to the exposure limits.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Elkin.
Thank you. It was just a follow-up from that, really, because would the road be within that plume modelling? It's within the distance, but obviously it's horizontal, not vertical.
Yeah, so the 70 metres is at 6 metres, and where you reach the limit, but you wouldn't have reached that limit at ground level, but irrespective, we've applied that 100-metre exclusion level, obviously at ground level.
Yes.
If you follow.
Yes. Can I ask a follow-up to that as well? Thank you. So again, just for my understanding, it mentioned that the modelling was done under atmospheric disturbance. Does that mean high wind? We get a lot of high wind on that bit of land.
Yeah, so the modelling is both technology specific and site specific, which is why we've done this specifically for this site. And so it looks at, and because obviously it's site specific, that refers to both topography and sort of wind conditions. So we modelled 2 scenarios, a daytime and a nighttime. The daytime is considered sort of the more turbulent because you've got heat from the sun sort of increasing wind speeds and things like that. And so actually the worst case is the night time, because when there's wind, that actually helps disperse the pollutants, whereas when it's very still, they hang around for longer. And so these 70 metres are the worst case at night, and actually it would be less than that in the daytime.
Right. Councillor Lawrence, do you want to turn your mic off, Councillor Elkin?
Bearing in mind this is all new technology and your temporary planning permission is for 40 years, what is the life expectancy of the battery? Will you have to change them every 10 years or 5 years? And does the safety of the battery degrade over that time limit? Sorry, that's 2 questions.
Andy, do you want to take that?
Yes, so I'll answer your second question first. Over time, the batteries do degrade in relation to chargeability, a bit like your mobile phone. If you continually use it, the battery doesn't last forever. So at a point, they do need to be changed out. I believe with ours, it's somewhere around 20 years or so, where the modules then need to be changed out. This is monitored through the various monitoring systems that are held within the battery management system as well. Could you ask your first question again, please?
No, I've forgotten it.
It was what's the life expectancy of them?
The life expectancy is around about 20 years. So there will be a point where they do need to be changed. But again, that'll be dictated by what we see in the battery management system and the management of all of our systems that we track these batteries through.
Thank you. If there aren't any questions from the rest of the panel, I'd just like to ask a question relating to the safety of during the construction phase. I feel satisfied that it all meets the guidelines once it's built, but given that the fire in Belgium was started during the construction phase, presumably by human error, and there is some sort of construction management plan, can we be assured that the contractors that are used on the building of the site and the roadway and all those peripherals are used to working next to a gas pipeline and to deal with batteries? Because human error, and we all know what construction, you get some third-party constructor come in. So can we be assured that the third-party firms that you use for the construction are going to follow the safety precautions and are used to working in that sort of environment?
Yeah, I'm happy to start, Andy, and then I'll pass across to you. So you're quite right. The Belgium disaster, and for those in the room who don't know about the Belgium disaster, this was brought to our attention by the parish council. So that was actually construction of a car park, and the contractors there had damaged the pipeline, and the pipeline operators weren't aware, and so then further down the line that had caused damage in the pipeline. And there's a health and safety executive report available on it, which sort of explains what happens and then also sort of what are the learnings for the industry. I think it's important to note that this wasn't anywhere related to batteries, but then exactly as you say, it is a construction incident, and we will have a construction phase. And so the health and safety executive gave sort of three learnings that they wanted carried out from it. And so it's if you know that a pipeline is there, work with the pipeline operator, and they request that that's at the design stage. So hopefully you've understood from today that's something we've done, worked very closely and will continue to work closely with National Gas and Progress Power, and they are both have no objections to the application. The second is that contractors must take reasonable steps themselves to actually, when they get on the ground, work out what's going on. And then the third is on the client to actually make sure that they've had duty of care to pass on that information. So number one, in terms of working with the operator, we've done that closely. Andy can talk to then how we pass that on to contractors, but the construction industry is managed by the Construction Design and Management CDM regs you might have heard mentioned, and they're governed by the Health and Safety Executive. They assign roles in construction, so you have a principal contractor, principal designer, and so under one of those regulations, you have a duty to provide pre-construction information to your contractors, part of which is details on utilities. So we will prepare that information and then pass that on. And then Andy, I'm sure you've got something to add about how we actually then work with and select contractors.
We have a robust pre-qualification process that we follow before we employ any contractor. That involves looking at their management systems, looking at their safety records, looking at the work they've done in the past. We employ experienced contractors in this type of work. The work that we're doing it's multi-million-pound projects. We don't just want small contractors doing it. We want tried and tested contractors, and we vet them regularly throughout the tender process, throughout the pre-construction process, and throughout the construction process. We as a business turn up every month to the site at least once to check that the construction team are building the project as they should be from a safety perspective. We also have project managers who are there regularly as well, checking in on the same sort of things. So I think we have a solid process in place to make sure that all of our contractors get the relevant information they need pre and during construction.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Thank you very much. It's been interesting learning about battery technology from you. So we now have a statement from the ward member who's unable to be here today. So this is from Councillor Tim Weller about this particular application. My observations on this application remain as they were when committee last considered it in April. The modest supplementary information provided by the applicant does little to assuage the concerns I expressed on behalf of residents previously. It is inherently risky that a system requirement to deliver BESS installations at pace has forged way ahead of the development of appropriate technology-specific health, safety, fire prevention and risk management policy. As a consequence, there appears no material grounds at present for committee to reject the planning officer's recommendation. I am of the view that existing policy informing that recommendation is, however, insufficiently technically relevant to properly address the novel risks posed by the rapid rollout of BESS technology. My view was recently supported by Suffolk Fire and Rescue Service, whose Deputy Chief Fire Officer has, since the last committee, spoken publicly about the lack of relevant powers available to the fire service to properly regulate and enforce safety for BESS technology, and he acknowledges the risks this poses. More recently still, within the last few days, a House of Commons research briefing highlighted that the government's complete removal of BESS from the SIP process in 2020 removes central government from making these challenging planning decisions. Instead, it places all risks associated with approving these risky schemes firmly with the local planning authority, even though a contemporary and relevant policy framework for making those decisions and managing their effect does not exist. If committee are minded to accept the supplementary information provided by the applicant, I would make a request that it conditions full implementation of the risk mitigation and best practice measures set out in paragraph 3.3 of the research briefing. So that's from Councillor Tim Weller, who's the District Councillor for Palgrave Ward. We don't have him here to answer any questions, but could I just ask, maybe this is for the planning officer, do the conditions require full implementation of the risk, the best practice measures set out in this recent research briefing that Councillor Weller refers to? Can Bron do that?
Thank you, Chair. We can make sure that we word the emergency response plan, etc., condition to make it clear that that needs to take account of the absolute latest guidance at the point of implementation of the scheme, because it's obviously going to be harder to require changes to the built form of the development at the annual review stage. But we can do that. That would be helpful.
Have you got that, Mark? Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, just a quick bit of legal advice, Chair. Just because something was said on behalf of Franderson Parish Council about what happened last time and legal costs, I'm just going to, I thought I'd deal with that. I'm not, the committee is hearing the matter afresh today. I don't need to say anything about last meeting, and what I or anyone else said is on YouTube for anyone who's interested to see. But just to say, I have not advised, I'm not advising you today that to take into account any financial risk that might exist as a result of refusal being successfully appealed. Because I've just looked up the case law to make sure I'm getting this right. The Court of Appeal have confirmed, there was actually a case in 2019 involving our other employer, Baber District Council, that went to the Court of Appeal, where it has been said very firmly that the financial risk to burden on our council taxpayers from a costs award in a planning appeal, if that should happen, and the reputational risk of us being embarrassed and if we lose an appeal and get costs and that's reported locally or nationally, are not material planning considerations. What the courts have said is that there's nothing wrong with members being aware that such a risk exists. As you all know, I mean, normally in an average planning inquiry, both sides, whichever way it goes, both sides meet their own legal professional costs. But inspectors can award costs against either the council or the appellant or anyone else involved if their behaviour was unreasonable. And that includes unreasonable refusal or an unreasonable application, for that matter, on the other side. There's nothing, it is perfectly, the Court of Appeal have said it is perfectly permissible for the risk of cost to encourage planning authorities, i.e. officers or members making a decision, to think carefully about their reasonable decision. That's permissible. But allowing the risk of costs associated with defending an adverse decision to influence them in the exercise of their planning judgment is legally wrong. And the courts have gone on to say, well, if you mention it at all, is a risk of the line being blurred, and people. So that's why I think the officers have not mentioned it today. I'm only mentioned it because another party has, and I want to avoid any possible confusion. I mean, and I'm content with the advice your officers have given on the planning merits. I don't need to add anything to that. So thank you.
Thank you. So I'm now going to open this up for debate. Councillor Lawrence.
I think it's been a very interesting debate so far and discussion. I'm quite satisfied or understand there is no objection, only with conditions from the gas pipeline operators, National Gas and Progress Power. They're not objecting to this. I'm quite satisfied with the applicants' discussions and provision of information on the explosive levels, distances from the gas pipeline and the distances from these batteries themselves from it. And I would therefore like to propose acceptance of granting permission in the court on page 31 with the conditions listed there.
We have in our questions suggested some slight different wording to conditions. So are you suggesting we take the ones that have been discussed in the questioning as well as the ones on the page, or are you just referring to the ones in our papers?
I'm just referring to the ones on the papers.
Okay. Do we have a seconder for that proposal? And that is a proposal to go along with the officer recommendation and the conditions listed on page 31, 32. Anyone wish to second that? No. Okay. So we haven't got a proposal. So anyone else like to speak in the debate? Councillor Penny? Then Councillor.
Yeah, I quite agree with Councillor Lawrence that it's been a very interesting debate and discussion, and a steep learning curve for all. I do feel quite satisfied with the safety precautions and measures during the operation of the site. I think the greatest risk are during the construction phase, but I feel also comfortable with that measures that will be taken and safeguards are adequate. And so I would like to propose that we agree the application with the addition of the amendments we have proposed in the recommendation.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Morgan. And can we just go to you, Mark, and just for you to remind us of what are the additional conditions that we're going to add, and just check that that is correct with Councillor Penny.
Yeah, they're actually amended conditions. But we've got several ways of doing this. Ron has supplied the text for both those conditions. So can that be supplied electronically, Claire, or should I read those out? Read them out, okay. So forgive me, they are rather long. The amended condition 19, which we talked about consultations. So sit down and listen. Prior to the first operation of the development, a final version of the Battery Safety Management Plan and Outline Emergency Response Plan, together with the date of first operation of the development, shall be submitted in writing to the local planning authority for approval, and this is the next bit that you're interested in consultation with Suffolk Fire and Rescue Service, the operators of the gas pipeline and compressor station, Progress Power gas-fired station, Yaxley substation, Hartismere High School, Town Council, and we can also add to that Yaxley Parish Council. That's the relevant part that's been threaded into that. The rest of the condition I can give to you if you want. Thereafter, an annual update of the Battery Safety Management Plan, Emergency Response Plan, and any revisions to the Plan Battery Safety Standards Report, document ref November 2024, and Site Safety Report, document ref also November 24, to include confirmation of compliance with the latest version of the National Fire Chiefs Council guidance or any such other document that may supersede that guidance shall be submitted to and agreed in writing with the local planning authority within 28 days of the date of the anniversary of the first operation of the development, and every year thereafter for every year of this permission or for the operational lifetime of the development if shorter. Final sentence. The development shall be maintained and operated in accordance with the most recent documents as may be approved. Got all that? Would you like that in the chat with this help? Can this be supplied electronically, or is there any way of doing that? Is there any way of the whole text being... No, okay. The active part of that was about the consultation. Sorry, Councillor Warboys.
That's what you referred to, Councillor Penny. And you're happy with that, Councillor Morgan, as the seconder? Right. Councillor Warboys.
The condition, I think, has been discussed. The most dangerous period is actually during construction of the site, when in terms of managing the sort of construction traffic. So shouldn't this emergency response plan be in place before construction starts?
Well, I was going to ask something similar, but it did say it was a battery safety management and emergency response plan, which I presume relates to when the batteries are operational. But can we also have some condition relating to the construction methods or whatever?
Ron, have we already got that in one of the other conditions?
We don't already have that, but we can easily word a construction safety management plan, perhaps to go alongside the construction transport management plan,
okay, so
or to stand alone.
Yeah, so condition 11 also already says construction management plan. Condition 12 says construction traffic management plan. Was there something else?
Do we need to... Is there anything else? Councillor Elkin?
Thank you. Just before it goes to the vote, I just wanted to say I've got a slightly different stance. I totally get everything that the applicant has said about all the measures that they're putting in place, all the studies that they've done. My concern is about the construction phase, but also about the fact that the nearest units are 20 metres to a busy road that goes to the town of Eye and to a high school. And in the event of any sort of BESS fire incident, the site is remote, there is nobody on site to implement, in the first case, the emergency response. It will take some time for anyone to arrive to implement that response. So there are 1,000 children down the road at the high school, there are 1,000 workers at Cranswick. So I personally am minded to not vote for this, but I appreciate there's lots of other views in the room.
Councillor Hannigan, I think you had your hand up at some point, did you? No? Councillor Lawrence.
It concerns me a little bit that we're adding conditions in the construction phase when there's already requirement from other industries that this has got to be constructed to protect the high pressure gas line. So what authority do we have to determine whether that construction management plan, if it complies with the gas industry's requirements and other requirements about how they've already said they're going to put a concrete slab across it and they're going to have the owners, the national gas representative on site. That is already being managed in accordance with regulations. In what position are we therefore going to set conditions and knowledgeable contrary to that?
Is that something that we can have a comment on from the planning officers?
I think, yeah, back to Bron.
Thank you. We need to make sure that the conditions meet the tests, the 6 tests of reasonableness and precision and being relevant to the development. I don't think it would be unreasonable to include in the condition which requires a construction management plan to explicitly state that that should ensure the practical safety of the construction and all elements of the construction. But as Councillor has just said, that is already regulated and the planning regime should not duplicate existing regulations. So I don't think we need to, I don't think it would be found to meet the necessary tests to go much further than just saying that safety has to be explicitly addressed in the CMS.
But we can say that the construction management has to be in accordance with all the regulations for working and all. That could be in our condition.
We can certainly add that in. Yeah.
Just to provide some surety to the residents, I think. Councillor Warboys.
I think I don't think it's a case of the sort of managing the construction site itself. I think it's the emergency response plan that's the factor in this, that should an incident occur, that plan needs to be in place before construction starts, because if you've got a school with over 1,000 pupils that needs to be evacuated, roads closed, then this needs to be an integrated plan involving all the necessary services. So if there's going to be an emergency response plan, it should be finalised and in place before construction starts, surely. That's my question.
Is that practical or feasible?
Basically, we can add that to the CMS condition, the construction management condition, which is condition 11. We can add some wording which will speak about the construction safety plan.
But I think Councillor Warboys was referring to the emergency response plan, saying that if there is an emergency during the construction phase before they're operational, and it hasn't been agreed, I think if I've got the right end of the stick, you're worried about an emergency happening before the batteries are operational. So can we have the emergency response plan agreed before construction, or does it only before operation?
I mean, theoretically, yes, you can. I just want to know from the case officer whether that's going to cause any issues. Bron, do you have any thoughts on that?
We can absolutely change the trigger from prior to first operation to prior to commencement. We would need to get agreement for that prior to commencement condition from the applicant, but they're in the room. I suspect they will be happy to do that, but if they can confirm, that would be helpful, please.
I can see someone nodding. But what worries me about doing that, though, is, as you say, it's a fast-moving technology, and if the if you approve all the emergency response plan before construction, and I presume it will take a while to construct, what if the tech has moved on during that construction phase and we then have an out-of-date emergency response plan? Can it be reviewed before it's operational?
It can, yeah. I mean, on one of the other conditions, we've slightly opened up to say should comply with the latest, so we can put that in. It's getting a bit messy in terms of what's going on which condition here. 19 we've cleared. I've got to go back to 4 in a minute, which was about the latest guidance. We'll do that in a minute. But this other business about construction safety, emergency evacuation, that sort of thing, need to be clear which conditions we're amending, or if we're putting any extra conditions in. So at the
would you like a little break in order to sort all that out?
I'd just like to make sorry, clarity for members what they're looking for, really. At the moment, we were looking at possibly adding in a construction safety plan into the CMS condition 11, but from that, there was then a debate about, I think, was it emergency, are we talking about evacuation during the construction phase? And where we should put that in. If we could find somewhere to put that, then we're done, really. I think it could go in 11 as well, possibly. Ron, do you think? Sorry to keep calling you back.
That's okay. Yes, I think we can make all of that work. I've understood what members are looking for, and I can make sure that we word the conditions so that we're getting the information beforehand. Councillor Mansell, I can also think we can reasonably make the wording of the condition for the emergency response plan to be first reviewed prior to first operation. So we have it secured pre-commencement, first review prior to first operation, and then subsequent reviews annually from the date of operation, if that would give additional comfort. I don't think that's unreasonable given the fast-moving technology.
Which
I think Councillor Penny wants to come in.
Yeah, I was just wondering whether it's not a construction phase emergency response plan and a operational emergency response plan, and they're two separate things.
If members would specifically like them to be labelled as separate things, we can ask for them to be submitted under separate submitted documents. But I don't think that's necessary. I think if we make it clear that it's to cover both the construction phase and the operational phase, that a single document would be expected to talk about the differences in risk and response at each of those stages, including decommissioning as well. But if you would like it to be more explicit that they submit them as separate documents or with separate sections, we can make it clear in the condition that that's what they should be submitting.
As the proposer, Councillor Penny, would you prefer it to be or one condition, as Bron has just said, one document, or one document with several sections, or several different documents that can be separated out into the different phases? Are you happy either way?
I'm probably happy either way. I was just trying to help with clarification for Councillor Warboys' point. If Councillor Warboys is happy, then I'm happy.
Do you have any further comments, Councillor Warboys?
I think the fact that it will be reviewed for operation, and that has the chance for it to be modified in terms of operation. I'm really just concerned that the services are ready right from the beginning and they have a plan in place.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to make any comment on the proposal that we are now discussing? I just want to make a comment that we are, this application does meet all the national guidelines and the policies. And as I said earlier on in the meeting, we're not here to change the policies. We have to use the policies to help us make the decision. And if the national guidance says that all of what this is within the regulations, then who are we? We're not the experts, and we're relying on those experts feeding into the policy. And it is a fast-moving technology, and policies may well change. But I'm hoping that we've got our wording such that we can keep abreast of the new technology and make sure that the emergency planning and the safety do meet all the most up-to-date guidance that we can use. So anybody else wish to make any further comment in this debate? If not, I will ask the... right, do we just need to remind for Mark to just remind us what we're voting on before I ask the governance officer?
I think we're there now. So the last point, I'm treating it as a distinct point to be addressed in the decision in whichever way, but it will be emergency response plan, which will relate to the construction phase as well as the operational phase. That will be in there somewhere. It might be covered by a heading already, but that will go in the decision. So that's point 1. Point 2 is condition 19, which we've went through at length. Don't make me read it out again. Condition 11, we suggested we could put in a construction safety plan to add to the CMS condition. And the only other one I haven't run by you yet was condition 4. And we have suggested wording here. It's a lot shorter than the other one. No development shall begin until final details of the battery equipment and all associated electrical infrastructure, including details of how these comply with the latest safety guidance, that was the active point, and regulations, shall be submitted to and agreed in writing by the LPA. Development shall be carried out and completed in all respects in accordance with the plans and details as may be approved. So those are the 4 key points. The long condition, that condition, adding in a construction safety plan, and the issue of the emergency response plan being for construction and operation. Those are the 4 suggested amendments.
Thank you. Is everyone now clear on what we're voting on? We're voting to go along with the officer's recommendation plus those additions that Mark's just explained. So I'm going to ask the governance officer to conduct the electronic vote.
Thank you, Chair. Members, that vote is now in progress. Thank you, Members. Chair, that's 6 votes for and 2 against, therefore that's carried.
Thank you. I'm now going to propose that we have a comfort break. So if we can have 15 minutes break, can we meet back here at 25 to 12? Thank you. Welcome back to Planning Committee. We're now going to move directly on to item 7B, DC 2403882, former ambulance station, Duckermere, Bramford. I will invite Alex Bredman to introduce the application to committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. It's still morning, members. I'm going to be presenting application reference DC 2403882 as for the erection of 8 bungalows following the demolition of the disused St John Ambulance Station and Priory House offices to the south of Duckermere in Bramford. So, to give you some context of the site, application site obviously hatched and bordered in orange. We're sort of to the south of Bramford, the settlement boundary running down Lorraine Way here and along Fitzgerald Road there. Immediately adjacent to the site, it's mostly residential, so we have a sort of a trio of houses here, and they sort of abut to the side and back of the site. We do have an open allotment here, and opposite the site, again, to the north of Duckermere, we have the primary school and its playing area. Again, just a wider view of Bramford, so you get a bit more context of the site. Most of the services in the village are along the street, which is here, so we've got reasonable access on foot to sort of, I think there's a co-op and some restaurants down there. Site location plan, probably giving you a better idea of what the current layout of the site looks like. So we have the former ambulance bus station at the front of the site here. This is the single-storey structure. And then we have the 2-storey Priory House kind of office building towards the back. The majority of the rest of the site is concrete. We have a few little patches of grass sort of at the top of the site and a little bit at the back, but all of this in the middle is all concrete currently. And just to demonstrate constraints on site, again, you can see with the brown line outside, that's the settlement boundary for the village, so we were within it, but otherwise not too much in terms of constraints actually on the site. Before I move kind of onto the proposal itself, I will just highlight a couple of items from the table papers, hopefully everybody's seen, that were issued yesterday morning. So just to kind of clarify these points, there was a minor amendment to the consultations. Unfortunately, from a mistake on my part, one of the objection comments was duplicated, so we have 4 representations in total, not 5 as per the report, totaling 1 objection and 3 neutral comments. There was some comments as well from Strategic Housing just with regards to compliance with M42 building standards. So I've just put an insertion to paragraph 1.7 just to basically highlight that point that 5 of the 8 bungalows do comply with that standard. There was also an insertion to paragraph 1.10. This was more just for clarity than anything. It was discussing garage materials, which I'll sort of detail a little bit more later as we go through the presentation. And there was also an insertion to paragraph 3.7 when discussing the principal development. Basically, the initial report talked about paragraph 125, but referenced point B when it should have referenced C. So just for full clarity on that paragraph now reads as paragraph 125C of the NPPF provides that substantial weight be given to suitable brownfield land within settlements for homes. To note that proposals of this nature should be approved unless substantial harm would be caused. And the final point on the table paper was just an insertion of a recommended condition, just seeking compliance with M42 standards. So, in terms of the proposal itself, if I can get this to work again. Right, so I say I'm going to show you this proposal. I haven't yet. This is, again, just kind of site elevations to give you a better understanding of the site from the ground. I'd probably draw your attention to this bottom one. This is how the majority of people currently experience the site from road level. Again, you can see the bus station, the ambulance station at the front, and the 2-storey Priory House towards the rear of the site. And this is the proposed plan. So, like I said, 8 bungalows. We have 3 access points. So you have plot 1 to the front, plot 8 to the front, both with their own separate accesses, as you can see. And then the remaining 6 bungalows will make use of this estate road running through the centre of the site. In terms of the overall designs, so they're split into 4 types. Initially we have type A, which is then split into A1 and 2. There isn't an awful lot of difference between A1 and 2 and B1 and 2. So at the top here, this is type A, and then we have A1 at the top, and then A2 at the bottom. Kind of, you'll note the main difference is just this gable is cladded as opposed to just a smaller section of cladding at the top of here. But there is also slight differences between each plot type. So, for example, plot 2 is type A1, and it uses buff bricks as opposed to the red brick you'll see on the screen. And again, there's kind of variations in the colour of the cladding. The actual design of the buildings are as per, but yeah, like I said, slight variations, so some of them will be mirrored from what you see, and slight changes to the colour finish of the materials. So now we have the floor plan. So for A1 and A2, all the bungalows are 2-bed, designed for 3 people. But for A1 and A2, the gross internal floor space is just under 65 square metres, which is compliance with nationally designed space standards. These 3 plots are the ones that are not M42 compliant though, but otherwise simplistic layout inside. And then we move on to type B. So B1 serves plot 5, 6 and 7. You can see kind of immediately it's a slightly larger dwelling, but again, it is 2-bed. Again, kind of changes to the materials throughout the scheme, which you'll see in a little bit more detail later on. So some of the concerns kind of raised publicly are with regards to the study and number of bedrooms. Obviously, we're only indicating a double bed and a single bed. In terms of NDSS standards, the study doesn't comply with minimum bedroom size. So from a planning perspective, I have to take this at face value and consider this as a study. So again, we are looking at 2-bed. The gross internal floor space of this dwelling or dwellings is just over 84 square metres, again complying with NDSS, and this dwelling is complies with M42 standards. Type B2 is essentially the same. You'll just note we have a slight hip here. These dwellings are going to be at the front of the site, so these are the ones facing Duckermere. And there's a slight, so I think we're looking at plot 8 here basically, and plot 1 would be the same but mirrored. So you'd have that kind of opening as you enter the estate road into the site. Again, changes in materials as well. The actual floor plan of this dwelling type is the same as the one we've just seen, so again, we have to consider that study as a study. To show the garages as well, the correction in the table papers was basically to say the materials would just correspond with the dwelling. So if a dwelling has buff brick, the garage would have buff brick. But these are, again, pretty simplistic. Single bay car, garage, some bike spaces to the rear. So in terms of the parking situation, again, this has been highlighted by Parish Council and third-party comments as well. Given each dwelling is 2-bed, from a planning perspective, we have to make sure that they have 2 parking standards, and you can see each dwelling has the garage space and a place forward of that. There has also been sort of notes, I understand, with regards to visitor parking. We only have 1 allocated visitor space, which you can see here. Hopefully that's clear with the little V in the middle. I think reasonably, this is not through road. It's not going to serve significant traffic, and there is space towards the rear where you could possibly argue that there's space for another visitor. I'll leave that perhaps for yourselves to debate. And then finally, kind of on the highways point, just to indicate visibility displays, Duckermere again is a really straight linear highway. So all the access points can see 90 metres to the west, and then obviously we have the junction with Fitzgerald Road. So we can't quite go the full 90, but acceptable nonetheless. And then lastly, just to kind of, again, this actually shows you what all the dwellings will look like. So we have at the top here, this is facing west, so we have the larger homes here. You can see the variation in materials, even to the garage doors and the front doors of each home. So although there's cohesion in the styles and appearance of the dwellings, there is some variation still. Oh, sorry, jumped the gun. And then the final one is from Duckermere, looking directly at the site. So we have plots 1 and 8, and then I've attached this below just so you can get a comparison of the two existing and proposed. And then just as the final point, to give you some site photos, so you can kind of see what it actually looks like on the floor. So this is looking at the site directly from Duckermere. This is facing east. You can see, oh, my mouse isn't working. There we go. So you can see the dwelling which appeared in some of the street scene drawings there. And this is facing west with the allotments over here. Primary school you can see over there. We've now stepped into the site, and this is looking at the ambulance station and the rear. And you can see Priory House to the back here as well. Thank you for listening. Obviously, as per the committee report, my recommendation is to grant with conditions. Any questions, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from members? Councillor Haddingham.
Thank you. So can you just explain, Alex, why it was called in?
Sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. It's one of those cases that's had several hands on it because of a change of staff, so Alex inherited it. I spoke to Gemma yesterday, and at the time it was submitted, there was a lot of objection and comment from lots of sources, including the parish, so he felt it was best to have it considered by committee as controversial. So that was Philip's decision.
Do you want to come back?
Oh, it's just another question, really. So all the parking spaces, like double parking, so that's one with the garage, and is there any way we can stop them using the garages as a shed?
I think as per although it's not obviously in detail, but on the recommended conditions, in securing parking spaces, that would limit the garage to just a parking space. So we have conditions to try and secure that and maintain it as a parking space. That's probably the best we could do, but...
And presumably we could remove permitted development rights to turn the garage into another room. Is that on the conditions already?
Yeah, I think that would be covered by the condition. We do have a general permitted development rights withdrawal in there anyway, but I think that condition will cover that.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Penny.
I've got a few actually, but as I've got one in connection with the garage space, it says that the cycle storage is within the garage. Looking at the size of the garage, I'm wondering if someone decides that they want to use their bicycle, then they would have to remove both cars in order to get their bicycle out. Is it considered acceptable to have the storage in the garage? Looking at the size of the garage.
Yeah, no.
Doesn't
noted completely.
Looks like a squeeze.
Yeah, I obviously we take a lot of advice in this kind of regard from highways. Highways haven't raised any objection on that sense. They're content with what has been proposed. I think again, this is just my view. I think reasonably there is space in there, and the garages have personnel doors to the side as well, so you can access to the back of the garage. So there would be that secondary access point. Does that help at all?
Do you want to come back? I'm sure I can say something about cycle parking, but I'll wait for you, Councillor Penny.
No, I was just trying to find it difficult to picture looking at the access door, if you want to use your bicycle.
Can I just come back on the bicycle storage issue? On the plan, it looks like quite a narrow gap between the bungalow and the garage. Thank you. Sorry for that slight delay where we lost internet. So we're still on questions to the officer. So Councillor Penny, have you got another question, or should we move on to somebody else?
I could ask.
Do you want to do one more and then we'll
I'll
move to someone else?
And then let someone else have a turn. I'll just. Is there adequate bin storage? I couldn't see the locations for it on the plan, considering the increased number of bins we'll be having soon.
Yeah, can we pull it back up on the screen? Thanks. Oh no. Okay. Oh, I've gone the wrong way. Sorry about that. It is 8, please. 8. Yeah. Thank you. So, yeah, bin presentation areas for plots 1 and 8 would be just fronting the highway, kind of as per all the other houses along here, but there is also sort of a communal store area here, not store, but presentation areas. So that would be for all the other 6 dwellings, where we have bins there in the morning, collect them at the end of the day.
So I think that's where the bins are presented on bin day, on bin collection day. You actually asked about bin storage on the plots.
Oh, sorry. So no, on the plots there is that as well. Bear with me. So let me just shift again to the other one. Apologies. I appreciate it's all quite small when we're just looking at the one screen. I can't zoom in, but if I get there eventually, you can see. If I just use this one for example, there's a few squares dotted here. Same here. And these are other proposed bin storage areas, basically to the side or back of the garages.
Are they big enough for 2 or 3 bin? They seem to be marked.
Yeah, they're shown as 3 on the drawing. I don't think these are sort of defined areas necessarily with, a low-level fence or anything around it. They're just on the patio basically. But I think they're large enough spaces to occupy 3 bins.
I'm sure the applicant can answer more details when it's their turn to talk.
Councillor Penny may have some more questions, but has anybody else got any questions? Councillor Oak.
Thank you, Chair. Can you just remind me how many new access roads are being built? There's obviously 1 already, but is it going up to 3 from 1? And will they all have dropped curbs?
Yeah, so the existing access will be no more basically, and then we're having the 2 new access points for plots 1 and 8, and then the estate road that runs down the centre, yeah. So 3 total, like you said.
And they'll all have dropped curbs, will they? Thank you.
Councillor Warboys.
Thank you, Chair. Yes. Could you just clarify for a bit? You mentioned that the bungalow types are slightly in excess of nationally described space standards. This is something the Bramford Parish Council raised. Does that mean that they would be easily adaptable for a wheelchair user? Is that a different standard?
Yeah, that's the M42 standards I mentioned. So of the 8, 5 of them are adaptable for wheelchair users.
5 of them are?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Hardingham?
Thank you. Could you clarify what the position is with the road markings on Duckermere, which are to be removed? I mean, obviously they're very worn from your photograph, but why exactly are they being taken away? And it sounds as if there is parking difficulties and access problems for getting to the school. Why isn't it suitable to retain no parking zones on Duckermere?
So you have to forgive me slightly because I don't know the full the background with highways. Some of them at the very least obviously need to be removed because they're on that side, so we need to get rid of them for, oh well, I guess because the new access points are going in, although, like you said, it's probably best maybe to keep them in. Sorry, I don't know the full background on the discussions with highways, so I'm not really sure how to answer, I'm afraid. Sorry.
Okay. Right. So we'll leave it with highways. Yeah.
I think, just to clarify, sorry, there's been discussions with the applicant that they can fill you in there. It's a bit of a complicated procedure about how you do it, but we've got to that point where it's going to be delivered, and I think the applicant can help you out there if that's okay. Thank you.
Anyone else got any questions, or shall we go back? Oh, sorry, Councillor Caston. Let's have your question, and then I'll go back to Councillor Penny.
Thank you very much. Through you, Chair, the County Council have got a holding objection on this, and they've got 6 different items that they want information and amendments on. Where are we with that? Is there a more current bit of information covering that?
Was this highway, sorry, you're referring to?
Yeah, well, it's Suffolk County Council Highway Development Control.
Bear with me.
It may be a superseded document, but it's in the application.
The most recent comments I've got from the County Council, I think are March time, and it's just their kind of standard, no objections, here's some conditions. Apologies if I'm looking at the wrong, if I'm referring to the wrong department, but that's the most up-to-date I have.
So this is with the application, and it's dated 9th of October 2024. And it's
on our papers, there's actually, it says 7th of March 2025, Suffolk County Council Highways comments received.
Yeah.
So I think, are you on the planning portal? Is there a document for 7th of March? Can somebody find that and just confirm that they're happy with that?
That's what the website is showing. Suffolk's website is showing that the most up to date is the date. 7th of March,
and that is a no objection.
It's no objection, subject to a series of I think 5 conditions. 6, 7, 8. Lots of conditions. Yeah, 8 conditions.
And all those conditions are listed in the list of conditions at the end of the report.
Yeah. It's also subject to a 106, which will help with the traffic regulation order, which will take away the parking restrictions on Delamere Road.
And the parking restrictions were there because it was an ambulance station.
That makes sense, but I don't know that for definite.
Oh, okay.
Not really, because I'm not quite sure what I'm looking at in front here, but it's got 6 different, they're talking about visibility displays and other, the keep clear road markings to be removed. And I don't know if we've got another document that supersedes that, or we've got 2 documents that are the same consultation.
Are you able to clarify this question?
I think those comments have been superseded. Those are the October comments. Yeah, those have been superseded by the March comments.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Right, so Councillor Penny, have you got some more questions?
Well, yes, it's probably in relation to what has just been queried alongside what I was asking just before we lost the connection to the internet. If car parking is permitted in front of plots 1 and 8 on the road, then surely this would affect the visibility displays for vehicles reversing into the site, such as a bin lorry, which doesn't seem to be addressed by anything on the 7th of March. Is that correct?
I think the difficulty with that is we can't control necessarily what happens on Duckermere. With the clear road, it's been demonstrated that there would be visibility displays. But if someone was to park kind of on the roadside, we can't control that through a planning permission. So, did you want to jump in?
I was just going to say that if we could call up the drawing of the layout, hopefully it's the one which they're referring to. The Highway Authority refers to drawing PO5 revision B. So if you can find the layout, that apparently will show you the displays which are. That should hopefully indicate displays, and we can't pull it in, unfortunately, can we? Can't zoom in, but that shows displays basically. Oh, is that the right one? That might be it. Yeah. So those displays, as indicated on the drawings, are the ones the Highway Authority wants. So if the developer can provide displays required, then they are meeting the requirements of the Highway Authority in its desire for those displays. Which will be sufficiently safe as far as the Highway Authority is concerned.
I think so. So just to clarify, so it would still be for highways to approve, and if say a refuse vehicle couldn't turn round, then highways could still object.
They've looked at the submitted drawings and are not objecting, so I think that's the easiest thing to say. In terms of the refuse freighter, and again, the developer may more than this, you see the bin collection point's quite near the top of that road, so I'm suspecting they're not going to turn around in that close, but would collect from Delamere. That would be my guess.
Okay.
Have you got another question, or shall I move to Councillor Elkin?
I'll contemplate the response.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Elkin.
Thank you, Chair. The Bramford Parish Council had asked to be consulted on the traffic management plan if this were to go ahead. Is that something that could happen?
Yeah, absolutely.
Does that need to be a condition, or?
Let me just check the conditions, because I can't. Again, we can. I see no reason why we couldn't include them.
That sounds like an informative to me for us.
Right.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, or an instruction to us, should I say. It's one of those where it wouldn't really go in a condition, but we have to ensure it happens. So let's minute it that's going to be actioned, and we'll think about how we can do that. But you'd like the parish to be consulted on the construction management plan, did you say?
Yes, they'd said, because obviously it's a congested road and they want to be consulted during construction.
That's an instruction to us to make sure it happens.
I notice there's also a condition on construction working hours, and I'm not that familiar with the site. I have been there once, but it seems to be the access to the primary school. So if you've got delivery vehicles or construction vehicles turning up at school pick-up and drop-off time, that's going to be really awkward. So can that be incorporated into the working hours and the management plan?
Yeah, you want the CMS to consider school hours. Yeah, CMS to consider school hours, yeah.
Any further questions of the officer? Councillor Hardingham?
Could you give us some clarity on the air source heat pump provision? I mean, the condition says details of air source heat pump. Does this mean that all the property is going to be provided with those rather than any other form of heating?
So this may be one to refer to the applicant agent later. The condition is more so kind of, well, as it says, it's just seeking information as to what we're going to get. We don't know is the short at the moment, but maybe if I could ask for clarity on that in a little bit. That'd be appreciated.
Yep. And if I could just follow up on that, on the subject of PV, photovoltaics, whether there's going to be any panels on the houses. Similar point, really.
Similar answer, I'm afraid. It would come under the same condition, and yeah.
Councillor Elkin?
Thank you. Again, it was just a point the parish council had asked about the boundary treatments. I think where they face the allotments, I think there's proposed to be some chain link fence or something. I just wanted to, if you could clarify what's proposed to be there and if there's any scope. I know we can only vote on what's in front of us, but if there was any scope to adjust that, if that was what the community wanted.
So at the minute, proposed along that entire boundary is a 1.8 metre closed body fence. Whether that, again, sorry if I don't know what's happened kind of in the past. I picked this up a couple of months ago, but that's what we've got now. So if it's changed at some point, yeah.
Councillor Warboys, did I see you wanted to put your hand up, or were you just stretching your arm? Yes, okay then. Any further questions? Councillor Morgan, and then we'll go back to Councillor Penny.
Yes, I just had a question about the connection to existing pavements, bearing in mind we were shown the access to the centre of town and restaurants and things like that. Is that built into the plan? Because I couldn't see it very clearly on the plan. So it's connecting with and being added in accordingly.
Yeah, sorry. So I guess I could just touch on kind of general access in that area, if that would help.
And are they wheelchair, accessible with drop curbs so that they get to and fro?
Yeah, there's drop curbs in and out of the site, obviously kind of into the broader area. I'm not sure. But I think one of the conditions as well we've got is, or recommended conditions, is details of footways around the front of the site. So, yeah, there's no proposal for kind of a link to go across the road to the other side of Duckermere. But we have, like I said, we've got the drop curbs kind of to that frontage of the site. So there would be opportunities. They just wouldn't be formal crossings, if you like. Is that what you're asking for? Yeah. No. No, no.
Councillor Penny.
Yeah, back to the same subject, having contemplated a bit more. Would the parking restrictions on Duckermere be removed prior to the construction phase or post-construction?
Bear with me. So the recommended wording at the moment is prior to first occupation of any dwellings, but there's obviously kind of freedom for that to change.
Anything else you want to ask for now? Right. If there are no further questions of the planning officer, thank you very much. And we now move to public speakers. So first of all, we have Caroline Walton from Bramford Parish Council. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, I'd like to say that Bramford Parish Council supports development on this site and welcomes the provision of bungalows, but feel it's being overdeveloped. Albeit that we still argue the critical lack of healthcare provision in the Gipping Valley, and we still await improved access for our residents, old and new, to these essential services, which must be in place before more homes are built. We would also like to point out that at no time has the developer made contact with us or officially engaged with the community regarding this application. We did reach out, but no communication followed. Some of these matters could have been avoided if there had been engagement. Bramford Parish Council are concerned with some matters which must be addressed prior to this development,
and in particular major concerns of access and parking on site and in the street, and a robust traffic management plan. Duckermere is a 350-yard dead-end road with private homes, allotments and primary school for 315 students plus staff and a preschool. The street parking is already at full capacity due to nearby homes not having adequate parking provision, and during school in and out times the road is gridlocked. Road rage and illegal parking are a regular concern, with police often attending. This development must be made to be self-sufficient with off-road parking. Currently it has a garage and one parking space per home. There is one visitor space on site only. It is inevitable that there will be overspill parking onto the street, adding to a street already at capacity. To provide the solution, Brantford Parish Council would ask that the developer reduces the number of properties to 7 and provide adequate parking provision for owners, deliveries and visitors. This would also assist with the turning circle and access to the refuse collection and obviously cycles, etc. that you brought up. Another major concern with this application is it does not have a thorough construction management plan and a very poor and insufficient traffic management plan that happens to be hidden as an appendix in the construction management plan. This TMP has 6 short bullet points that does not take into account the school in its immediate vicinity and the dangers for the community when accessing the provision. Restricting deliveries during school in and out times is a must and must be recorded so. We must insist a more detailed TMP is completed, and the Parish Council would be happy to be a consultee in this condition, which you've already discussed. Dust and noise need to be managed in more detail, again to ensure the close neighbours and the school are not disrupted, and consideration also at lunch times when children are using the outdoor space immediately opposite the site. Also, as mentioned, please would we request hedgehog highways, bat boxes, bee bricks, etc. to improve biodiversity net gain and supporting the existing on-site. Please support our community and hear our concerns for our safety regarding this difficult location. Ensure sufficient off-road parking and a thorough CMP and TMP. Thank you. And I can give you some information on the yellow lines if you need clarity on their history.
Okay, well you're almost spot on the 3 minutes. Yeah. So what we'll do is we'll get the question about the yellow lines. So if someone would like to, whoever asked the question about the parking restrictions, we'll have that as the first question. Councillor Penny.
Could I please have some clarity on the yellow lines and parking restrictions on Duckermere?
So those yellow lines were put there as a concern for when it was an ambulance station, and the pulling out of the ambulance in and out of that driveway wasn't great enough when there was cars parked opposite. So the hashes went both sides so they could pull out and go without any obstruction. So with this new project, if they take the lines away on their development side, then that's not such a great issue, but I think you're still going to have difficulty turning out of the site and turning into the main street if someone then parks opposite, and it's particularly during construction with the larger vehicles and the rubbish trucks. So I don't know if removing them on the far side opposite is necessarily a good idea, or at least changing them from the zigzag, because they were emergency vehicle restrictions as opposed to double yellows.
Thank you. What, do you want a plan or a photograph? Have we got a photograph of Duckermere? I've got it up on Google Street View, but
you can see where that, sorry, you can't, I don't know if you can hear me, but yeah, this is the clearest picture we've got, where you can see them on both sides of the road, and then you can see where it ends.
And that was the school playground on the right-hand side, if people who haven't worked out the geography, on that one. The school playground's on the right-hand side, and that big lump of tarmac is the sort of ambulance station.
Yeah.
Does that help, Councillor Hallingham? Okay. Any more questions for Parish Council? No? Thank you very much. We don't have an objector, we don't have a supporter, we have the agent, Craig Weston. Welcome. I'll use my high-tech timer for your 3 minutes. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair and members. My name is Craig Weston. I'm from Woods Keemner. I'm the agent for this application. The application has been shaped with care and a clear understanding of local needs, and particularly the growing demand of single-storey accessible homes. Hence, sorry, is that clearer?
Yeah.
Hence, we provided 5 of those to meet the M4 Category 2 category for accessibility and so on. Many of these homes, and the developers with me, has been delivered, and they generally provide homes for downsizers, older residents, and allow those to stay within the local community, and also allows larger homes to be freed up to the market. I had a lot of other notes here, but I just want to sort of probably focus on some of the points that have been raised during the discussion, particularly the point around parking and so on in the highways. So we acknowledge the Parish Council's comments on the highways, particularly the school. And I think it's worth noting that the proposed condition from the Highways Authority allows details to be submitted. So it might be that the keep clear is removed, but in consultation we could reinstate a double yellow or something like that if that was acceptable. Generally throughout the application we have engaged with the consultees, we've engaged with the planning officer, and it's obviously taken a little bit of time to get to where we are today, but the Highways Authority is satisfied with what we've got forward, satisfied with the level of parking being provided, satisfied with the turning arrangement for refuse vehicle to reverse in and exit the site, and also satisfied with the level of sort of visibility display. We do also acknowledge the Parish Council's comments about making contact with the developer, or the applicant in this case. Sadly, that hasn't happened. We're not aware of such contact, and had that have happened, we would have engaged directly should that have come forward. That said, we have seen the Parish Council's comments, and we have addressed a number of those through the plan application, including revisions to landscaping within the front of the properties. We've updated the boundary treatments, which you alluded to earlier. So we've got the 1.8 close bordered fence along the allotment site, and we've covered a number of matters relating to ecology as well. So we do have a ecologist report which is submitted with this, a BNG assessment, and a matrix which supports the biodiversity net gain which is achieved on the site. So in summary, well, before I go to summary, one point that I do support from the Parish Council as well is also the pressures on medical facilities, but sadly, these aren't matters for...
Is this your summary?
Summary. These aren't matters for a minor application. These are for sort of district level concerns. But I'm here to answer any further questions.
Thank you. Any questions for the agent? Councillor Penny.
I think I'll have a change of subject. Considering that the 3 smaller bungalows are intended not to have M42 access, would you not think that it is precisely the smaller bungalows that would be more targeted by the elderly and single occupants who would be most in need of M42 access, perhaps? The advantages of putting in M42
that's an opinion. Your first bit was fine, that was a question.
Thank you for saving me, Chair.
Yeah, so there's a question about bungalows with M42 compliance.
I can't really answer that really in terms of we've got 8 bungalows proposed. 5 of those meet the M42 category standard. I mean that's in excess of what is a requirement. It's in excess of what strategic housing require. I mean, surely, yeah, you could sort of say that all the bungalows should be disabled friendly or wheelchair user friendly, but then that adds sort of a premium to all of those properties should someone else want to purchase them. So the smaller bungalows, in fact, offer a lower sort of entry point to bungalow living, offer a downsizer, so they still suit a need. And it's probably worth noting the developer, our client, has delivered a whole number of these schemes, including in Balham, Bilderston, and Woodbridge, Grunsborough. So these bungalow schemes are of a mixed age group. They're not all immobile. There's a handful that are, have used aids, and quite a lot of them are single occupants, and they may also have the 3-bedroom unit or a 2-bedroom unit, depending on their specific needs. So, so a 2-bedroom unit with a study, they'll use that as their craft room or something like that. So it's
Thank you.
Lots of courses.
Councillor Elkin.
Thank you, Chair. Another slight change of topic. Apologies if this is all in the paper somewhere, but could you just let us know if the BNG measures include some of the things that the parish would like to see, like bee or bird bricks and hedgehog highways? Thank you.
I don't have that detail to hand, but I could pull it up. But we have included sort of notes to the effect of bird boxes and so on the buildings, which is something that's obviously applied through condition, and we'll certainly incorporate any of the recommendations that are in that report.
There is a condition which says biodiversity enhancement, so I'm assuming that when that comes forward for discharge or discussion with the planning officers, can we be assured that it will include some of the features that the parish council have requested? I'm just looking at my planning officers there. Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Warboys?
Yes, one for clarity really. Just looking at the sort of traffic management plan and construction plan, you've identified that there's hazards due to the school proximity, drop-off and pick-up times in particular. But I can't find what you're actually doing to do about it. Could you just clarify that?
Well, I can't clarify the details. That was provided by the developer. And in short, we have to provide further detail on that subject. So that was submitted in the hope that we could address that head on in terms of a risk. We acknowledge there's a matter of construction management that needs to be addressed. But if that needs to be embellished, more detail provided, make it more robust to the satisfaction of the parish and the environmental health team, then we're happy to do that.
Thank you.
So we can provide more detail is what I'm saying. Not
any further questions? Councillor Hardingham, and then I'll go back to Councillor Elkin.
Yep. Can you give some more detail on the construction standard that you're going to build to? The parish council mentioned future home standard for one thing, and just to follow up on the question of air source heat pumps and PV panels on the houses, whether these are going to be provided. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. So from a technical side, that would fall under building regulations. We've developed the technical information to support that, and that would certainly meet or exceed the current SAP requirements in terms of energy use. In terms of PV, that will come down to that SAP assessment. So we haven't got any PV indicated at this stage. And in terms of the heat source, yes, it could be an air source heat pump, and we can provide details as is indicated on the conditions.
Thank you. Councillor Elkin.
Thank you. Sorry, I was just thinking about the last one. It's obviously been, the parish would have made clear that they'd like a bit more communication. Would you be happy to commit to having some sort of community liaison person during the sort of, if this goes ahead?
Sorry, I'll just pass you over to the developer, Mr. Frenzel here, who can hopefully field that.
If you'd just like to introduce yourself before you answer the question, thank you.
Yeah, hi, I'm Andrew Frenzel, part of the development team, and yes, we're quite happy to liaise. Oh, sorry, we're quite happy to provide that liaison. Yes.
Thank you. Any further questions for the applicant? You got another one, Councillor Elkin? Well, we're not at the debate stage, we're only at the question stage, so we can add the conditions when we're discussing what we want to do with the decision. Any further questions? Thank you very much. And so now we move to the ward member, Councillor James Caston. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair. So first of all, I'd like to say that this is a good place for development. It's a brownfield site. The original purpose of this ambulance station is no longer something that we need, and it should be developed. I think there's a lot of good things about the way this has been done. The Old English Multi and Buff are a tried and tested design in the area, and I think. I think we do welcome. I don't have an issue with this site being developed, but my issues are the overdevelopment of the site, and I think it leaves a minimum of biodiversity gains. The trees on the proposed site plan don't come up on the design statement, but I measure that as about 4 metres of grass with a tree on it in the middle of the development, and I'm seeing everywhere I go trees being cut down within 5 years, 2 years of a development, and they cite disease or something like that. It's not. It's because trees are getting planted in the wrong place and they become a nuisance, and they cut them down. So that's one of the issues. We've also talked about the cycle storage. I think everything's is tight in there because there's 8 houses on there. I don't think we should have quite so many. But the real issue with this site is when I first became councillor for Brantford, the first bit of casework I ever got was Duckermere and parking, and it's made a regular appearance all the way through the last 5 or 6 years that I've been there. The primary school turns into the busiest street on Brantford for the 8:45 drop-off and the 3:15 pick-up, and it is chaos. And I know a lot of primary schools are in a similar position. There's 3 access points of this. There's the main estate road, and there's the 2 roads either side. It's for that, it's a funny design. I think that it's got to be the design like that because the amount of houses on there. But you are putting in 3 different places where people will be pulling out as the children turn up for school and walking down. I think we're going to put strain on the parking on there and the safety concerns. The way the parking's set out with a garage and a parking spot in front of it tends to not work because people don't use a garage for parking every time, and also people leave at different times in the morning, so people put cars on the driveway and one on the road to so that they can leave at different times. There's one visitor parking spot which I just don't think it's anywhere near enough. We're going to lead. We've got pictures there with cars parked all down the road when those photos were taken. We know that people park in nearly every single space that's on Duckermere, and this development shouldn't put any more strain on that road, and it doesn't need to. It can be set out so it doesn't. The other thing is, during the construction phase, we've got, there will be a stage where there's brickies, chippies, all sorts of vans parked all around the site, blocking up the road. There's going to be deliveries, and during the demolition, there's going to be dust and things with children coming past. I think we've got to seriously look at a robust, consideration in the development stage of this, so that there's no risk of harm to youngsters. The school's only going to get bigger. It's got 100 more places coming up in it. It needs to be. We need to future-proof this school. We're putting a lot of money into this school, and developing it to take this educational need. And I think the reason why I'm so concerned about this is after this has been developed, I think my phone's going to start ringing. I'm going to get emails, and it's too late by that stage to actually do anything about it. I think, for me, I'd find this perfectly acceptable if we had proper parking provision, and I think the only way we can do this is to have maybe one less house on this site. So, thank you.
Thank you. Can I just ask a question before I open the floor up to everyone else for questioning? You talk about the school needing to grow. Are there any current plans for Suffolk County Council to extend the school to increase the number of children?
Well, that was where the 100 extra places is coming. Caroline was a governor at the school, so she's probably the person to ask about where the school...
If there were any, whether Suffolk County Council actually committed to extending that school already. Yeah, you can come in, Caroline.
Yeah, thank you. So it was already extended. It was a school that had 1 class per year, and that's been extended to 1.5 per year. But the building that was built was a phase 1, so that was 4 classrooms, and it's designed to have another 4 classrooms added to it. So it has a phase 2 in holding.
Thank you for the clarity. Anyone else got any questions for the ward member?
I have just now found it on Google Maps, but so does the mums or the school parking, should we say, does it go all the way to Fitzgerald Road? Is that what you're saying? Roughly.
I have issues on Fitzgerald Road. I have issues on Duckermere. It's everyone sort of just crams in around that time.
I totally understand, but I'm just saying so that the school parking basically goes all the way along. Would you say, on a regular basis, that it goes... The school parking basically creeps along the whole Duckermere all the way to the Fitzgerald Road. Would you say it on the whole?
Yes, I'd say it's the whole road at those times.
Any further questions for the ward member? Thank you very much. So I'll now open this item up for debate. Councillor Lawrence, followed by Councillor Harding.
2 questions, if I may.
2 questions, or are you starting the debate?
Oh, sorry. 2 bits of... Partly both. The debate is, I don't understand what the fencing is now alongside the allotments. Because we've heard, I thought on the planning in front of us, that it was going to be a chain link fence. We've now heard it could be palisade fencing. So what are we considering? We've got to consider what's in the documentation we've had, or what the agent said he will now allow. So I'm confused what we're actually considering.
In the most recent documents we've got, it's 1.8 metre closed boarded fence.
Wooden?
Closed boarded.
Closed boarded wooden, yeah. 1.8 metres. So.
The other point for clarity really is, it would seem that there's a lot of understanding that development of 7 properties would be better for this parking issue, but if we're looking at the plan in front of us, it's for 8. So if we can't condition for 7 because it's 8 is the application.
We have to determine what's in front of us, which is for 8 bungalows.
So if we go for 7, we can refuse it.
Yep, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Hardingham.
Yeah, my first impression of this site is that it does look very cramped and crowded. Really not a lot of room between the buildings. I would echo the comments about cycle access into the garage. And I'm inclined to think that it would be much better, agree with Councillor Caston, that it would be much better if we had another look at a new application with 7 houses instead of 8.
Thank you. Councillor Elkin.
I was, yes, similarly wondering if we could, would it be reasonable to propose deferring it on the grounds of overdevelopment?
Isn't that just a refusal? I'm just looking to the officers.
Or can we...
It depends what you want to do. If you're, I think I've got this right, your issue is one related to parking, I think, more than anything else, and the feeling that one less unit will mean 2 and a bit fewer cars. If the development can wash its face and not worsen what is seen as a bad situation already, then I don't think it's reasonable to refuse it for parking reasons. If what you're saying is it's deficient by 1 parking space, which I think it is, to be honest, there's 1 visitor space and there's 2 for each house, then you have mathematically you've got a case. But I ask you to consider the removal of the yellow lines is going to free up some spaces as well. So could you argue that it's neutral, let's say, in terms of worsening the situation? If you're still worried about the parking, I think it would be fair to take this away and see whether the applicant can't fit in another visitor parking space. So I think there might be places they could do that.
Okay. Anyone else wish to join the debate? Councillor Haddingham, and followed by Councillor...
It's a sort of question really now. Mark's just said that. Are you basically saying that, you know, we can't just you know, us saying there isn't enough parking isn't a good enough reason, because highways are saying, you know, that there is 2, even though they're double parking, and we all know everyone's going to use those garages as a shed.
I'm explaining the options to you. You could refuse it as presented for the reasons you've spelt out, which is insufficient parking. Or you could ask the developer to see whether they can't fit in another visitor parking space. The tandem parking, I realise the issues with that, but it's the Highway Authority doesn't object to that. It's, you know, the statutory constantly is okay with all that, basically. So that's the position you're in. That's okay. You're down by 1 parking space. Do we let developers have a chance to fit another one in, or do we, you know, that's your decision.
Councillor Warboys.
On a slightly different track, but I think it's related to parking. I'm traffic manager. I've heard from the ward member the concerns, particularly about how congested it gets when the during drop-off times and pick-up times at the local school. And the agent has said they've got more details with regards to the traffic management, but I think I'd quite like to see them in the document. It talks, there's nothing in there about sort of delivery times or about the working hours from 7:30 to 6 p.m. That's fine. Everybody arrives 7:30. That's well before the schools. Everyone leaves after 6. That's well outside the school times. But it's those that 8:30, and I'm not sure what the time is for Bramford, 3:30 window when the area will be getting very, very congested, and people will be on the roads as well. So I think it is related to the traffic, but I think I'd like to see that construction management just beefed up a little.
Yeah, I must admit, I'm a little disappointed in the application, and the fact that the agent wasn't able to answer all the questions. I just feel that we haven't got enough detail about some of those things that really concern the parish and the area, and because there's been no not a lot of communication between the parish and the applicant. You know, how reassured are we that if we say all this stuff about working hours and construction management, is it going to happen, and is the parish going to get involved? So I just feel there's lots of issues which, yes, may normally be dealt with by condition, but it just all seems a little bit too vague right now. And I agree. I think the site looks overdeveloped. I know the officer mentioned something about extra parking right at the end of the little access road, but surely that's the turning space. If something parks in that visitor bay, and let's say it's a camper van, somebody comes to visit in a camper van, they've got to turn around. So if the cars are parked in the end, which they will be, they won't be able to turn around, they'll have to reverse out. And if there's cars parked along Duckermere, on either side of the road, that's going to be really tricky. But we can't refuse it on parking. Can we, you know, I just think it looks like overdevelopment. I'm quite concerned about this, the access. It's just you can't turn around. Where are people going to park? Councillor Haddingham.
I agree with what's been said and what the ward councillor said. I think it is overdevelopment. I think you will get people parking on the verges unless you literally put like chain link fences so that you can't. I think everyone will be parked on their bits of grass, and before you know it, that's where, you know, everyone will park. I firmly believe that all those garages will probably be used as sheds, and even if they weren't, it's still tandem parking, which I don't like at all. And like you say, what you don't want is people trying to reverse out that road into, you know, school parking, perhaps. Anyway, I don't like it at all, and I don't think I could go along with the officer's recommendation. And I think deferring it for one more space, I don't think it's going to work either. I think they need more than one extra, you know, park. I don't think that's going to fix all the problems, having one extra visitor parking either.
Councillor Morgan.
Yes, I agree with the fact that it's overdevelopment, because I was wondering about this lack of a parking space. I actually don't think that. I am inclined to agree with Councillor Castle on the fact, and with the parish council. It's more a safety issue. If this road is, as we know, it's got very little turning space, gets overcrowded during school hours and drop-off and delivery, those people driving, the mothers, the carers, whoever, the taxi drivers picking up, they're in a hurry. And I reckon we have safety grounds here from children's safety. And that is going to be, I'm asking actually for guidance here, is that perhaps a better reason for refusal than the lack of a parking space? Safety for the children and families.
I think that probably comes under highway safety, and that's Suffolk County Council Highways, but I may be wrong. I'll ask the officers.
I mean, it is covered in terms under LP24, you know, in terms of amenity and safety and that sort of thing. But yeah, the county is the responsible authority for these matters and hasn't found that, basically. So if you're going to defend that at appeal, you might think about how you're going to do that.
And what about overdevelopment?
Overdevelopment on its own starts a conversation. I think you probably have to describe the symptoms. Are you saying the gardens are too small? Are you saying the buildings are too squashed together? Are you saying there's not enough parking? What is the overdevelopment? You have to evidence it a bit more.
Councillor Elkin and then Councillor Lawrence.
Thank you. It was, yes, similarly about the overdevelopment. I was just going to ask, Councillor Mansell described, you know, you won't be able to get a bike down to where the bike parking is without scraping your knuckles on the wall. I mean, that sounds like overdevelopment to me. I can see it's a bit of a subjective issue, but what is there guidance on what counts as overdevelopment, or not really?
But you then have to. Yeah, I think there's too many on. Is there Councillor Morgan? I think you're still on.
Oh, apologies.
I'm on now, yeah. So the word overdevelopment can mean many things. That there isn't. I'm aware of no guidance which says this is overdevelopment. Don't do it. You're looking at as I say, the symptoms. So we've got garden sizes we tend to look at. I mean, you can then describe physicalities. If you think that there's not enough room to put your bike away properly, you can go into that detail. I think that then does become a little subjective. But I think garden sizes and parking provision are two key symptoms, if you like.
And we've also, somebody else also raised the issue of the front garden size and the fact there's trees on them and that might not be a big enough spot to put a tree. Is that, that's too small to plant a tree?
I think you could go down that line as well, yes, if you want. Yeah, there's many things you could look at. I mean, another would be perhaps the density and context of the area it's within. I don't know the area well enough to forward an opinion there. But.
I mean, it is within a settlement boundary, and I think there are quite a lot of. I'm looking at Councillor Cassidy. I think there are quite a lot of that style of housing in that area of Bramford. It's sort of bungalows. It's not like you've got big houses nearby with big gardens. I don't live in the area, but I sort of vaguely can picture it. I don't think they're completely out of keeping with what's there already, but I just think they're closer together. And I think the garages are actually quite small. I'm not an expert on car sizes, but if the garages were slightly wider, you'd be able to get your bike in down the side of the car anyway, and that certainly doesn't look possible. Anyway, Councillor Lawrence, I think you were next.
Well, similar vein to Councillor Elkin, my concern is that what we discussed earlier was if the bike is in the back of the garage, you're going to have to move 2 cars to get it out. Because I'm not convinced in a 1 metre space you can swing a bike through that angle to get in sideways through a door.
I think the door to the garage is probably behind the bungalow, so I think you can turn your bike once you get into the back garden. But you'll graze your shin with the pedal. If you've got metal pedals, it'll graze your shin, and you could knock your knuckles on the brickwork. So I don't think it's quite tricky. I've got quite a narrow passageway to my back garden, and it is not easy getting a modern bike with quite wide handlebars down, and it probably looks wider than those gaps. And we've got a hedge on one side, not a brick wall. So anyway, Councillor Hardingham, did I see your hand wave?
On a different aspect of this altogether, I note that we got no undertaking whatsoever in regard to air source heat pumps and PV panels on these houses, and it just referred to the SAP test. So I suspect that ultimately it'll go down to the bare minimum of what they can get away with in terms of environmental standards, and there is no aspiration to do better than that. Obviously not grounds to turn down, but it's another reason not to like this application in its present form.
That was what I was referring to about the lack of detail, that it just all seems to be down to signing off the conditions, and you're right that we'll probably end up with the bare minimum. Anyone else got to anything to contribute to the debate or to make a proposal? Councillor Haddingham.
I also think the fact that every single house has tandem parking, and not just like as a one-off, which no one likes anyway, but for all of the houses to have the tandem parking, for all of their houses to have the tiny little garages with which you can't get, like I say, if you had a bigger than a tiny car, would you even get it in? And so if we can have enough evidence to refuse this, then I'm happy to propose that.
Can we use overdevelopment as a reason for refusal, given all the things that we've been discussing about access to the back gardens, access to the bike storage, size of front garden plots, and lack of manoeuvring space for vehicles?
Chair, can I just chip in there? I'm pretty sure, well, I'm certain that one of the local plan policies refers to good design. And that we should be aspiring for good design. I can't remember which LP number it is. Can we not refer to that?
I'm guessing that's LP 24, which is a general design and residential amenity policy. You asked whether you could use overdevelopment for a reason for refusal. Excuse me. And as I said, you could start the conversation with that, but you need to then beef that up in your reason for refusal, if that's what you're doing. On one or two of the points that you've raised, the garages do comply with the standards for a garage which would also have cycle parking. That's in the adopted standards. So I think you'd be on dodgy ground if you went.
You do have to access the cycle parking from the back.
Well, the adopted standards say it should be 7x3 to have a bike in it and a car, and they are just slightly in excess of that. So I think if you had to evidence that at appeal, you wouldn't have anywhere to go with it. So if that's one of the overdevelopment symptoms you're citing, I wouldn't cite that. I think, to be honest, some people have expressed views about the layout looking a little cramped. That's a consideration. I think the main symptom, if you are going this way, is the slight deficiency in parking, and that's one space. So, from my mind, that is the argument at the moment.
Councillor Penny.
I'm just wondering if we could ask the applicant and developer whether they might be prepared to reconsider and resubmit as they are present. Would that be helpful?
I think that's for another day, Councillor, respectfully.
Okay.
Respectfully, we look at what's in front of us today and then have that discussion afterwards.
Councillor Warboys.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, while we're on the subject of space, and I'm trying to make sense of the bin collection diagrams, to bearing in mind that we've got new requirements coming in for more and more bins, and the requirements for a 32-ton vehicle accessing the site and turning round. In those circumstances, I'm not certain whether anyone would be able to park except on the driveways.
I think we touched on that point earlier, Councillor Warboys. I don't think there's facility for a freighter to go down that cul-de-sac. It looks like, if you look at where the bin storage point is put, including 1 and 8, which are actually on the main road, I think the collection would take place at the mouth of the cul-de-sac rather than the freighter going into the cul-de-sac itself.
Or maybe it will reverse in. I don't know. But the waste services have made no comment. Is that right? I don't think...
It's kind of vague, their comment. Yeah. It's sort of said subject to conditions, but they haven't said what the conditions are. And I'm trying to look at the diagram, and it's not clear. So we're actually sort of committing the residents here to sort of taking all the bins down to the road, where the visibility display is.
It's near the road.
There's a little sort of rectangle thing on the plan, which I think is the bin presentation area, and it's just about a sort of freighter length down the driveway, I think.
Just look at this picture. It's there,
We can't expand these, but yeah, if you could you just hover the red dot just to say where it's going to be? It's about there. So there are rules about how far one should carry one's bins, and it doesn't look very far, to be honest. I don't know those rules in my head, but it's, there is a walk involved, and then it's quite close to the mouth of the main road. So it looks to me like that's how that's going to work. I mean, there is a turning head there. I think you said a fire engine could turn around in that, didn't you? But whether a refuse freighter could.
So you're saying the fire engine can turn round in the little bit at the end?
It's what it's shown on one of the submit drawings there, showing fire engines.
But residents will park there, and then the fire engine won't be able to turn round. Anyway, Councillor Penny, you were going to come back.
However many houses.
I was going to raise exactly that. There are other vehicles besides refuse vehicles, such as ambulances and fire engines, that may want to go down the full length of the site, including home deliveries of cookers and washing machines, etc.
Councillor Elkin.
Thank you. I think garden size was mentioned. I just wanted to ask, are the gardens within sort of the expected size?
The first point to make is that we haven't got an adopted guidance like we have in Essex, for example, so there isn't a meterage, but I think some examples. Plot on plot, to me, and it's subjective, they don't look unreasonable. I mean, there are usable gardens in each one. That's square metres, okay, yeah.
Speak to your mic.
Right. Sorry, yeah, looking at that and talking. Sorry, there aren't the adopted standards in Suffolk, unfortunately, but from my own perspective and in the context of the area, that they don't look unreasonably small. We're talking about small bungalows for old people. It's the usual bit of garden. I don't know what you want, but there are no standards. I think, again, if you tried to, in my opinion, say that was a symptom of too many, I'd struggle. Again, I think I just return to the parking issue. I think is the one tangible symptom, and there might be a solution to that.
But you said we're only one space short of standards, but our argument is we don't think adding one will make a difference to the concerns that we've got, because although it might meet the standards, people don't behave in that manner, and they will park one vehicle in front of the garage door, and they will have to find somewhere else to park a second vehicle. And that will either be on Duckermere, or it'll be on the front garden, or it'll be on that roadway, preventing fire engine and ambulance and bin lorry to access the bungalows at the back and any other large delivery vehicles. But if the standards this meets the standards, well, it's just bad standards. But I don't make the standards, unfortunately.
If I may, sorry, yeah, I mean that's the problem you have. You have a perception of a problem, and therefore you refuse something, and then you defend it at appeal, and in your statement you go, well, yeah, we don't agree with the standards. I wouldn't like to be there for that argument.
I mean, it just seems such a shame that there hasn't been more engagement with the local community, because I think had that happened, maybe the applicant would have come back with 7. But they haven't, and we've now got to determine this 8. And it just feels too many. I think building bungalows on this site is brilliant, but I just think we're one too many. I think it's going to cause a traffic issue, regardless of whatever counties say. And with the proximity to the school, it's just not good enough.
If I make a final point, I'm not vouching for or against, just to consider there's an existing problem there, we know that. If development could be made to wash its face and not worsen it, that's not the applicant's concern. They're doing what they can. The problem may still be there, but that's an existing problem. So just to consider that when you're thinking about this.
But we've already heard from the ward member that the school parking probably pays no regard to the yellow zigzags anyway. I dare say there's probably people, if the ambulance station is sort of not being used, I dare say people are parking there now as it is. And if you've got a load of new bungalows, also that space will go. But that's all illegal parking and illegal use of the private land anyway. But Councillor Elkin.
Thank you. So, if I've understood, the bit of regulation it doesn't quite meet the current parking standards by 1. So, would it be unreasonable to turn it down on that grounds? I mean, it feels like we have to apply that fairly to everyone, but I don't know what, would you normally say, well, it's only 1, therefore it's acceptable, or is it like, no, it doesn't meet it, it doesn't meet it?
In my professional opinion only, it's up to you members, that there's an existing problem. I think if you worsened it by even a little bit, then questions would be asked why. Equally, if there's scope within the site to accommodate that extra vehicle, you might want to think about giving the developer a chance to come back with some amended drawings.
And of course, actually, on a percentage loss of parking space, often we're talking about parking in a large development, which has maybe got 60 or more houses. Losing 1 out of whatever number that is a far less of an effect than losing 1 out of the 16 spaces or whatever we've got here. I mean, as a percentage of the amount of parking space on this development, 1 parking space is a significant difference. Councillor Lawrence.
I must admit, I'm struggling with this, and I tend to disagree, I'm afraid, with your last statement, because I think if this whole site was away from a school, this 1 extra parking space we're talking about now would be totally irrelevant and wouldn't be a discussion. So I'm struggling a bit now. I've started a conversation going around in full circles, whether adding one or requiring one more vehicle space to be added, which would increase the congestion on the site itself for delivery lorries, ambulances, fire engines, etc. So I think we're looking at one end of the problem and creating another problem elsewhere within the site. So I'm struggling with this concept that adding another parking space will improve anything.
I personally, I don't think the applicant could add another parking space and still leave access for a fire engine to turn around without either reducing the size of the bungalows or removing a bungalow. I think they will struggle. I can't, okay, I'm not a designer, but looking at that plan, where would another parking space go without losing some green space or losing half a bungalow? But that's my view.
I think it might be possible, but that's not for me to design. It's up to you members whether you refuse this or give the developer a chance to accommodate one extra space.
Sorry, I thought our options were to refuse it on grounds of it's one parking space too few, or are you saying we should defer it and let the developer go away and try and fit another parking space?
I'm saying those are your choices, those two things. Are probably well, it's up to you what you do, members, it's your choice. But to me, the way the debate has developed, it's focused mainly on the issue of the deficient parking. Is there a chance to put one on? I think there might be, but I haven't done the measurements. I just think there might be a chance. If you feel, however, it's never going to happen, it's one space too few, which is going to cause highway issues, then you proceed in that direction. But it's your choice, members. I was just offering two choices.
Councillor Lawrence?
But I think that, I thought it was section 4.3, it identifies that these car parking spaces are adequate. And it complies with Suffolk County Council's recommendations. I think it was 4.3 in the paragraphs. But I'll stand
despite what it might say, members, you've decided differently, and actually the standards do say it should be 18 spaces for 8 houses. 18. It's 225% basically. It's yeah, that's how it works out. So 2 each plus another 2 spaces is what it should be.
Councillor Hardingham, you had your hand up.
Well, I'm inclined to propose that we refuse this application on the grounds of the lack of one parking space and wait to see what the developer comes back with.
Councillor Haddingham?
And I'm happy to second that.
Are you also going to second, Councillor Elkin, or have you got something else to say? So we now have a proposal which has been seconded, and that is refusal on grounds of insufficient parking. Is that what we got, Mark? Can we add in the bit about poor design and not enough space to wheel your bike to the bike store?
We could look again at the idea of there being too many and that having other symptoms. I think I've answered the point about the bike store. It does seem that the garages comply with the adopted standards.
I meant to get because you've got to use the back door of the garage. You've got to go down a narrow passageway with your bike. That's not ideal.
Can we just, if we're doing that, can we just have another look at the drawing, just to check we're happy with that, Councillor, just to be completely sure. And again, it's a shame we can't zoom in on it, but right. So, if I get the yeah, are there particular examples we can look at clearly there, Alex, where that shouts the problem to us? No.
If you've got a bicycle trailer with your kids in, there's no way you're going to fit it down there.
No, the standards don't ask for that, unfortunately. So you've got to think about what the standards that you're applying. So talk us through the perceived issue, just so we're completely clear. So where the red dot is.
So the I can't really see. Oh, that red dot, right? The cycle entrance for the garages is at the back of the garage, because you can't get it down beside a car. It's not wide enough for that. So you have to wheel your bike down that gap between the bungalow and the garage. And then when you get in the garden, you're going to have to sort of wheel your bike round. You're going to have to wheel your bike round. It's going to be quite hard to turn it immediately. But it's that wheeling your bike down the passage between the garage and the house, and then getting it into that bike storage. That I just think that is quite a narrow path to manoeuvre modern handlebar bikes down without grazing your knuckles or scraping the pedal on your shin. Councillor Elkin.
Thank you. Given that they're bungalows, I was also going to ask the same thing about, say, mobility scooters and wheelchairs. If you want it, they're not huge bungalows, so you might want to store it or charge it up in the garage. So same issue for mobility equipment.
Councillor Warburg, did you have your hand up?
Yes, Chair. Looking at the layout more and more, I mean, we're concerned about the parking for cars. I'm getting more concerned about how friendly it is for pedestrians, especially bearing in mind that they're going to be trundling 2 bins up and down at least once a week to the collection point, which to my mind still looks very small for a 16 bins, which are going to soon be there to be collected. There's no footpath provision. I presume this isn't adopted as a road by highways. Will it be a private road? So then there doesn't have to be a footpath provision legally. No, pity.
I think I've seen some correspondence that says.
Sorry?
I'm pretty sure I've seen some correspondence that says the road will remain private.
Yeah.
I doubt that sort of road will end up getting adopted.
So they don't have to make provision for
no, I think as long as it's all level, you know, you can wheel your bin there and you can get your mobility scooter out. I suppose that's all it is. Councillor Lawrence.
Yeah, a bit of speculation, but if we could propose as we carry on here, we could be inviting an application for bungalow, alternate house, alternate bungalow, alternate house, to create all the spaces that we want between the properties.
What you're saying, a house will be smaller?
It's got a small floor.
Well, possibly. Anyway, have we got something written down there, Mark?
So the bits and pieces of all that are you've identified a tight space for the manoeuvring of bicycles and wheelchairs. Access to the collection point on foot is undesirable, and perhaps we'll have to check on the provision, but certainly you're suggesting that the bin store provision per se is not acceptable. It was mentioned about the trees not having much room to grow, and there's one deficient parking space, all these being symptomatic of an overdevelopment. So
are the proposer and seconder happy with what we've got written down as a reason for refusal? Councillor Elkin?
Could I just ask, would it cover having room to store and charge a mobility scooter? You mentioned wheelchairs, but...
Mobility scooter.
Oh, yeah.
Mobility aids, maybe?
Yeah, add that in.
Are we clear on what we're voting for? Or do we need anyone else to clarify? So we're voting for refusal based on the grounds that Mark's just stated. Everyone happy? Know what they're voting for? So we're voting for refusal, and I'll ask the Governance Officer to conduct the electronic.
Thank you, Chair. Members, that vote's now in progress. Thank you, Members. Chair, that's 8 votes for refusal. Thank you.
Thank you. So that ends the cases that we need to discuss today. Our final item on the agenda is site inspection, and we have no request for site inspections. So the next meeting of Mid-Suffolk Planning Committee will be on Wednesday the 30th of July, 9:30 here in the Council Chamber, and I'm going to close this meeting at 13:19. Thank you very much.